I think I just realized that the who's and what's it. My thumbnail for today is not YouTube PG approved. Oh well. Welcome to my nightmare. Let's see now. Ooh, part 14. That one's the one. I added the teeth. And the ribs are dry, and the tail is dry. And I found a little hand, so he's in there. He's not quite dry yet, but yeah. They're spaggy, but they're glow in the dark too, so the teeth will glow. Alright, so this guy's done. I'm gonna bring him to the shop. I don't know if I should put him. Should I put him online or should I put him in the shop local? I don't know. What do you think?
Memory transcription subject. Governor Tarver of the Venlo Republic. Date. Standardized human time. September 1st, 2136. My visit to the research outpost was intended to last half a day. At my request, Cho, my diplomatic advisor, had crafted a speech to show our solidarity with the UN. The whole afternoon was a joint ceremony in remembrance of the humans who sacrificed their lives in our defense. At the end of it, I would send off the predators who partook in our first civilian encounter. The volunteers of Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross would board the initial outbound ship with their Venlo partners in tow. It was time for humans to receive a proper integration into our society, and that meant moving planetside. That was a less concerning prospect than it would have been before our experiments. There were 0 reports of human and Venlo violence during the past 10 days. Most of the complaints against the Terrans involved the predators trying to stroke our curly fur, which I found bewildering. That wasn't behavior I saw them exhibit with each other, so it couldn't be written off as a social custom. Perhaps a display of possessiveness, but overall, the trial of our species living together was a pleasant success, more so than any scientists predicted. The predators had an uncanny ability to bond with anything, and that allowed them to forge close connections within days. My mind defaulted to thinking of Noah and Sarah as part of my in-group at this point. I never could have imagined, when this all started, that I would look forward to seeing them as I did now.
So they're alive. Do you think they'll have good news?
Sarah asked. The ceremony had come to an abrupt halt when General Kam informed the UN delegation of a pressing development. A Federation shuttle barged into Venlo territory and raised a series of alarms. Its pilot claimed to be the missing patrolman, Slonek. He kept repeating that his human companion needed medical attention in a hysterical voice. I would have kept it on the down low until we knew more. Secretary General Maya wanted everyone aware of the situation. He believed that if the change of plans wasn't explained, rumors would spread that the AXA were attacking. The UN leader's presence was unexpected. We had never met in person or spoken beyond video messages, but it seemed when Ambassador Noah told him of my plans, he wished to attend the memorial firsthand. Many humans flocked to the docking port as the news dispersed. Everyone on the station was eager to welcome the arrivals. The crowd numbered several hundred once Venlo were added to the count. Terran paramedics were on standby, and the media were swarming to report any developments. I knew why the predators wanted to see the state of the captives. They were trying to decide if the Federation was an enemy. In the wake of my shocking admission, they wanted to know if coexistence was even possible. This was a good sign if the Federation military was civilized enough to hear a predator out and set it free. I'm hopeful, guys. I switched my tail reassuringly. If the Federation let your Marcel fellow go, maybe I was wrong. Maybe they can see you for the sensitive and wonderful species you really are.
I greenlit the plan for a preemptive strike days ago.
Maya's voice was slow and gravelly, flowing with the practiced cadence.
The General suggested that we needed to hit the key Gudjit launch points. I have no way of recalling our bombers, even if I wanted to.
Damn it all!
Noah cursed.
I knew we were too hasty. The Federation will see this as an unprovoked attack. We'll go into ruin all chances of peace.
I patted the ambassador on the shoulder, hoping to quell his emotions. His brown eyes softened and he gave me an appreciative nod.
I'm gonna bake these,
what was already set in stone.
and that'll give me something to mold onto.
Consequences together. Proximity alarms shrieked as our sensors detected an unknown vessel within bombing range. The UN general switched them off, then granted permission for the inbound ship to dock. A few Terran soldiers lingered near their officers with assault rifles in case of a trap. They learned the galaxy wanted to kill them. I didn't have the heart to tell them that such deception was a predator's tactic. Playing at empathy would never be the Federation's modus operandi. The exterior airlock creaked open, and the Federation shuttle descended from the inky backdrop. It followed the station's landing beacon to glide through the opening and mounted its footings into the docking port with surgical precision. The craft wasn't big enough to fit more than 4 individuals, and that was if they stacked on top of each other. The soldiers relaxed, satisfied that an ambush force was ruled out. It only took a few seconds for the port to repressurize, but I could sense the humans' restlessness. Anxious murmurs cycled through the crowd, waiting on the cusp of certainty, fueled the darker side of their imagination. The partition between the reception area and the dock receded once the sensors determined it was safe. A silver-grey Van Lille poked his head from the spacecraft, which drew a few cheers from all people. A bandage wound its way around his ears, tying down the long black tuft of hair on his forehead. The wrappings were soaked through with rich orange fluid. That fresh bleeding suggested he needed medical attention himself. The human paramedics exchanged looks as there was no sign of their man. They showed that they were way past the Benloom. I could only see their backs, but they seemed to stiffen as they laid eyes on the interior. What had they seen that we had not? How severe were the humans' injuries? The predators toted a stretcher inside, and some of the gurney to wait by the ship. Loud calls thundered above the chatter to clear a path. That meant Marcel was alive, but I had to wonder why he couldn't walk out under his own power. It also raised the question of how he incurred such a condition in the first place. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth.
My God, what have they done?
I am more grateful to you than ever, Tava.
Noah breathed, shaken to the core.
I should have never questioned your decision.
There's so much included on a Disney cruise. There to do it all. Dream big. Wish hard. Play harder. Slide. Splash. Save the world. The galaxy. Sip. Savor. Try something new. Take a little snooze. Breathe in. Scream out. And create a vacation filled with memories. Where magic.
Hello. I guess get some nails, and I'm just gonna wrap the ends of them in clay, and then I'm gonna bake them, and that's gonna kind of set everybody in place, so then I can build the lens on and make them more fabulous. Because this is not working.
I see now what you've saved us from.
Similar cries erupted from the onlookers as the paramedics emerged with the captured human. Marcel's malnourishment was apparent at first glance. His skin hugged his bones tightly, and his stomach was a flat depression beneath his ribcage. I wasn't sure if it was the starvation or the vicious injuries that caused his breathing to sound so strained. The poor guy's face was mashed to a pulp, bruised and bloodied. Whoever beat the human seemed to take particular offense to his binocular eyes. The way the sockets were turning black made my stomach flip. A metal band was fitted to his neck, and the skin beneath was marred with minor burns. Why was that choker still on? Nobody had taken it off. The Van Lille almost seemed more incensed than the humans. The thought of the Federation doing that to their buddy sparked a predatory rage. My own blood boiled at such a grave injustice. Noah was right. That would have been him if I allowed it. I was wavering on whether I wanted the humans to show mercy to my old friends after all. Stop filming this, I hissed at our media personnel. Show some respect. Maya crossed his arms.
No. Film it. On the condition that you'll show it everywhere. I want everyone to see this, to document how the Federation treated one of ours. When we declare war on these bastards, I don't want anyone saying it for no reason.
Whoa, hold up. If they realized their mistake and let him go,
Noah whispered.
maybe they're sorry and wish to make amends.
They didn't realize anything.
Slanted horizontal pupils snapped to orders as he overheard the ambassador's comment.
The captain was going to kill Marcel, and they're still planning to bomb Earth.
What stopped them from killing him? Did you talk them down? I asked in a soft voice.
I tried, Governor, but they wouldn't listen. We escaped by the skin of our teeth because of the first officer, Roussel. He incapacitated the captain and escorted us off the ship.
The Secretary General frowned.
What happened to this Roussel?
I brought him with us, sir. He's on the ship. I can't get him to come out. This isn't, exactly what I promised him.
My ears swiveled toward the shuttle. I thought I could detect the sound of terrified whines amidst the commotion. Maya looked like he wanted to retrieve the first officer himself and was about to start in that direction. Though the grey-haired human didn't exude hostility, I feared he might escalate Roussel's emotions to a blinding panic. Let me handle this, I said to the humans. Noah, Sarah, you remember how hard it was for us? And there were only 2 of you. Maya glanced at the astronauts and fell back as their nods affirmed my words. I ducked into the spacecraft to look around. Huddled beneath the pilot's chair was a Kolshian male with a dark blanket over his head. It was a pitiful attempt at camouflage. It would be amusing at a brighter time. The movement of the fabric and the outline of his form were obvious giveaways. I imagined him and paramedics noticed Roussel, but were too preoccupied with Marcel to coax him out. Within closer range, the whines sounded more like muffled screams. I flicked my claws on the floor so Roussel would know the approaching person wasn't a human. The officer peeked out from under his tarp. His bulbous orange eyes lit up with recognition.
Governor Tarver,
Roussel exclaimed.
you're alive.
Of course I'm alive. What made you think I wasn't?
It's just, nobody has actually seen you in months. And this station is infested with predators. I saw them through the window, lurking, waiting.
It's not infested. And they have good reason to lurk. They were curious and worried. And now they're rather upset. Hell, I'm upset too.
Oh, please help me, Father. This is a nightmare and I've done it to myself. I just want to wake up, you know? Keep me out of here. Please.
Calm down. Everything is all right now. Tell me, what is it that the humans are doing that's bothering you?
Slonic said there were just a couple. Tell me, 2 or 3 I could tolerate, but looking at all those predators, pure agony, feels like my chest is on fire. I don't know how you bear it.
I know exactly how you feel. It will pass.
You can't know that.
But I do. How about I introduce you to my first human friend? Just one of them.
Just one. Just one. One?
Roussel whined, rocking back and forth.
Okay. Just one.
The caution was clearly on the brink of a nervous breakdown, but I decided to move forward with that tepid affirmation. This guy defied a superior officer and sacrificed his career to save a human. That wasn't a risk that someone took without good reason. There had to be some part of Roussel that already accepted the predator's true nature. It was a matter of getting through to him, of bringing his logical mind back into the equation. Whether it was reason or empathy that struck home, it didn't make a difference. Noah? Come here, I called. The male astronaut hurried in, rushing to my side.
Is everything all right? What's going on, Tarver?
The first time I saw Noah, I thought he was feral. Can you imagine answering that hail? I waved a paw in the human's direction, and Roussel shuddered. All of his teeth are showing, and those murderous eyes looked like there was something out of a nightmare. He looked like the meanest, nastiest creature in the universe. The ambassador sighed.
Ah, Governor. You always flatter me.
Shush, I'm getting to the important part, I huffed. But anyhow, the human's words were about peace. There was such a disparity between that appearance and the things they said. My brain couldn't reconcile it.
I'm just saying, Tarver, you could fake the occasional compliment.
Noah shot me a coy smile. I had been around the predators too long if I could differentiate snarls, hadn't I?
Talk about my winning personality, my exquisite physique. Pretend you liked me?
I do like you. Stop fishing. At any rate, there was this collection of little things the humans did that made me think, maybe, the odd doubt. But looking at them dredged up all my worst memories, so I shut out that voice. I wanted them gone.
Then why did you stop Sovlin from getting rid of them? What happened?
Roussel stammered. I teared up, just a little, and the first thing Noah did was try to comfort me. I realized that I never gave him a chance. No unfeeling creature would pick up on emotional nuances like they do. That's when I knew. When did it click for you?
The instant Slonic showed signs of distress. Marcel tried to protect him. It was something he said, that he only cared for the Vendel's safety.
The Kolshian's eyes became distant, as though he was reliving the moment.
Even when the captain had a gun against his head, the Predator was trying to soothe his friend. And I believed him, if just for a moment.
You sensed it then, Roussel. You know that nobody could fake it that perfectly.
I know, but I feel...
Forget about the field. You're going to walk out of here with me and Noah. We'll find you a room, and I want you to rest up.
And then?
Then we're going to determine who is responsible for what happened to Marcel. The humans will decide what to do about it. It's your decision, but I'd like you to speak to them. You represent the Federation, as far as we're concerned. Noah nodded.
As would I. We don't have to be enemies.
Roussel rose to unstable legs and dusted himself off. Those first steps into the open were tentative and frightful. He curled his tail around mine for support. Venturing out through the sea of humans, many of whom were openly staring, must have been a daunting task, but he managed to hold back the scream which I sensed building in his chest. The officer lowered his gaze to the floor and marched ahead through the chemical fever. Perhaps this man was a spark of hope that not everyone would write humanity off on sight. I prayed that Earth could find other friends in the galaxy, and that our newfound ally would find the courage to prove that it was a possibility.
Memory transcription subject, Slanek, Vendel Space Corps. Date, standardized human time, September 3rd, 2136. Nursing the human back to health became my obsession. The doctors were optimistic that Marcel would make a full recovery, but I was determined not to vacate his side. There was no way I was leaving his well-being to chance ever again. My claws tightened around the fore, stabbing into a block of tofu. The spongy protein folded into the prongs, and I brought it up toward the human's mouth. My gaze lingered on the pointy canines beside his incisors, which looked perfect for tearing flesh. It felt unnatural, placing my paw so near to a predator's teeth while offering it food. A pins and needles sensation danced at the base of my toes, which I promptly ignored.
Slade, I can do this myself.
Marcel protested. The predator was lounging in a hospital bed, propped up against some pillows. After a fresh shave and some washing up, my human looked more like his old self. A nosebleed concealed the deformed appendage, and stitches mended the gashes on his cheek. Fluids and medication were distributed intravenously, which brought life back to his complexion. I glared at him. But I'm not going to let you, and that's that. Marcel rolled his eyes, but allowed me to insert the protein between his lips. I scrutinized him as he chewed. It was wonderful to see him eating real food after his long hunger, but I didn't want to lose sight of the big picture. Human medicine was primitive compared to ours, a school of medievalism. My vigilance was the only hope of preventing complications. All I knew was that Marcel's diet was essential to his recovery. It was my intention for him to consume every calorie the medical staff gave us. I prepared a fork full of greens which looked scrumptious and herby, and shoved it at him. The red-haired primate sighed. He took the plate from my stubborn paws and set it on the bedside table.
You've got to stop babying me. I'm fine, buddy, really.
The human began to sit up and grimaced as pain scorched across his ribs.
See? Good as new.
Tears welled in my eyes. No, you're not.
I'm on the mend. This is the new normal, and that's okay. I'm tougher than you think I am.
You're very strong, and resilient, and brave. But
What?
Got it.
I almost lost you, Mars, and it scares me how much that hurt.
Oh, it's over now, Slanek. I'm never going to let anyone hurt us again, okay? Come again.
I curled up on the bed and pushed my chin on the predator's thigh. Marcel reached out with his nimble fingers. The same hesitancy that always flashed on his face when he was worried about spooking me surfaced. His hand hovered over the back of my neck for several seconds, and my heart rate skyrocketed. What was he doing? My instincts despised the location of his paw and the way his nails were aimed in my head. It was a slash away from my throat. Everything about that body language made a predator about to pounce. No amount of trust could alter those obvious cues. My eyes blinked shut, and I summoned all my willpower to remain still. I felt a light touch on my ear. The human palmed the right one gently, then moved to the other. The breath I didn't realize I had been holding in escaped. Marcel beamed when he saw me relax, and took that as encouragement to continue. His fingers darted beneath my chin and ruffled the fur by my throat. The human's claws nipped my skin. They were rather dull for a predator's offensive weapons. Oddly enough, it was more gratifying than painful. A happy meal emanated from my chest. I nuzzled against his side and flipped onto my back.
You're so cute.
He whispered. Without thinking, I had exposed my most soft and vulnerable organ, my stomach. Marcel tickled my belly with vigor, which was quite an overwhelming sensation. I was embarrassed by my indignified squeals and mouths, but my control was slipping. I rolled around in delirium, thrashing and kicking. The human had to catch me when he almost tumbled off the bed. He winched from the abdominal strain, but refused to drop me. Attraction and warmth shined in his eyes.
Am I interrupting something?
Sarah stood in the doorway, amusement on her face. She stared at me, the blankets on the floor, then back at me.
Actually, you were. But now what do you think?
Marcel chuckled.
What can I do for you?
You look better. We're all happy to see it.
She replied.
but I just wanted a quick word with Slanik alone.
I tilted my head at the scientist, confused. Had the humans decided to blame me for my inability to prevent Marcel's injuries? Did they think he would be better off with someone stronger and more competent at their civic duties? I couldn't fault them if that were the case. My human released his grip and gave me an encouraging wave. A paralyzing reluctance made me slow to follow Sarah, so I dragged my feet to a secluded spot in the hallway. A mature individual would accept the consequences of their own failure, especially when that failure landed their best friend in critical condition and whisked away from death. I couldn't let him go, though. I slumped to my shoulders. Look, Sarah, I'm so sorry for what happened to Mars. My best friend was terrorized by a madman, and I was nothing more than a liability. I take full responsibility for everything and accept whatever the UN has decided. If there's anything that I can do to make it right.
Slow down.
The scientist raised a pale hand.
Nobody blames you, least of all Marcel. I think having you around is helping him immensely.
You do?
It's obvious. He's trying to hide it, but I figure he's in a lot of pain.
That's what I was worried about. So then, what is it you needed to speak to me about? Oh, stars. Is there bad news about Mars?
Perhaps. It's not clear yet. If I remember correctly, he was frightened to torture by aliens before this, yeah?
Sarah waited for my nod. She seemed concerned about how to phrase her next words.
I think you need to be worried about how humans react to trauma. Our brains often have difficulty processing it.
I studied her expression closely. What are you trying to say? Is Marcel going to go insane?
That's not a polite word, Slanik. Everyone reacts differently. Marcel could be fine, and I hope he is.
She said.
But after what he's been through, he must be prepared for drastic changes in mood and personality. He could become depressed, forgetful, irritable, or even hostile.
Hostile?
Nightmares and flashbacks are common in these cases. That can incite all sorts of negative reactions.
My eyes widened in surprise. It had never occurred to me that humans relived their worst experiences as vividly as we did. When I imagined how their brains worked, I was assumed it was different. No wonder Marcel was in a prolonged fog after watching the Arcs of Torture clips on the first day. Why would a predator have such an overblown fear response and cling to memories of prior threats? They were on the other side of that equation in nature. Even if humans descended from prey animals, they hadn't been that for millions of years. I guess it proves humans are just people, like us. That their emotions resemble ours. You didn't say negative, you said hostile, I pointed out. Sarah shuffled on her feet.
Alright, I need to Google something. Those are in. Alright. You're still drowning. Who missed me? Anybody here? Nope, but that's okay. I still love you anyway.
Well, the memories triggered our fight or flight response. Some people lash out with physical violence, though they don't mean to. I think that unlikely here, but it needs to be stated as a possibility.
My breath hitched to my thought, though I tried not to show my fright to the scientist. Physical violence? Being assaulted by a predator wasn't exactly on my bucket list. If a human lunged at me without warning, I doubted I could keep my composure. It would be tough to brush that off. The thought of Marcel with his meaty hands clenched around my windpipe stirred all of my subconscious fears, but I knew that wasn't him. My human hadn't tried to eat me even when he was starving. This mindless killer preserved my welfare to his own detriment and never displayed anything but kindness toward me. As long as it was unintentional, I decided I could forgive him for spontaneous violence. Sara deemed it improbable, so in all likelihood it wouldn't happen. The prospect of mental torture that would drive Marcel to violate his principles was more concerning to me. Why are you telling me this? I questioned. Maybe Sara thinks I wasn't being supportive enough, or she'll teach me which signs to watch for. Human mannerisms are as alien gets.
I don't want you to fault Marcel or to think that it's proof that humans are evil. I know how frightened you Venlil are of us. If any of those symptoms would be too much to deal with, it may be best that we found you a more suitable partner.
My ears flattened against my head. Is that what the Terran scientific community believed we thought of them? That we saw them as interchangeable demons and volunteered just to vindicate that conclusion? That's right. We risked our lives waiting for them to slip up so we could say, "Gotcha," I thought sarcastically. There was nobody in the galaxy, human, Venlil or otherwise, more suitable than Marcel. Being around him was pleasant and easy. I wasn't going to discard him the second a challenge presented itself. You want me to leave him because he might be ill, I hissed. I don't want another partner. I want Marcel, and I'll deal with whatever happens.
No, no! We don't want you to leave. That's the opposite of what we want.
Sara took a step back, trying to appear non-threatening.
But your feelings and well-being are important too, Sonic. You must not discount yourself out of some sense of guilt and obligation.
Obligation? I love him. Did you consider Marcel's feelings at all? To even suggest that I should abandon him right when he needs me the most? It's cruel. Heartless.
We are thinking of Marcel. Listen, he's in a fragile state right now. You're the main thing reminding him he is human, that someone cares for him. What would hurt him the most is to hear you call him a monster.
A furious growl rumbled in my throat. I would never.
Hey, baby.
Shorter than meeting
I'm
Marcel
sorry.
in front of me anyway. I would suggest otherwise.
Then I'll leave you be.
Sara's voice was measured, but there was pleasure in her eyes at my response.
If you need anything, you know where to find me.
I flicked my ears in acknowledgement and scampered back to my human's chamber without hesitation. After the mention of being pried away from Marcel, all I wanted was to have him back in my sight. What if he had an episode while I was gone? Once he was in my periphery, I could rest assured that he was okay. Marcel had cleaned his plate during my absence and was seated on the edge of the bed. His predatory eyes were staring into space and blinking. There was the hint of a twitch by his lip, as if he were biting his cheek. The human jumped a little when I leapt onto the mattress, and I curled my tail around his wrist and noted how he slowly unclenched his fist.
Slanek,
He sighed.
I missed you.
Before, I had attributed his aloof moments to the primitive narcotics in the IVs, but in light of Sara's words, it was apparent that a different culprit was to blame. I felt ashamed of myself for not picking up on the cues sooner. My preoccupation with his physical injuries caused me to overlook the obvious. What were you thinking about just now? I blurted. The human forced a smile.
You don't want to know.
I do. You can tell me anything, Mars.
Not this.
Try me. His gaze darkened.
I am thinking I want to kill Sovlin.
Get in line.
I am quite serious. I was fantasizing about it. Does that make me a bad person? A bloodthirsty predator?
I'd shed no tears over his death. It's not fair that he got away scot-free. You're a good person who's trying to process something terrible. And yes, has more aggressive instincts. He didn't deserve any of what he did to you.
Thanks, buddy.
You don't have to thank me. I should have asked you about your mental health sooner. How do those memories make you feel? And are you able to talk about it?
I don't know. When Sovlin was about to shoot me, I felt relief that it was over. Profound relief. I was ready for him to pull the trigger. I was only sorry that he had to see it, and that John was kidnapping you because of me.
Don't worry about me. All that matters to me is that you're here and you recover.
That's why I need you to let me push myself, Sonny. I heard we're going to war with the Ghajiits, and I want to join. Even if it's just to fly a ship over in logistics, I need to be cleared for action.
But you're safer here. Why would you want to risk your life again so soon?
To go after Sovlin, to deal with my anger. All of it. I have to do something, and I didn't know how to tell you. It's being idle that drives me mad.
Fine. When are we leaving? The human blinked.
We?
I'm coming with you if I have to stow away in your duffel bag. You can't get rid of me that easily. Marshdick listened in Marcel's hazel eyes, and the low trickle rumbled from his vocal cords. A silent vow formed in my mind that I would protect him better this time around, even if it meant shipping off to an active war zone surrounded by trained predators with guns. Something told me that I wouldn't be the only Venlil tagging along for the humans' war efforts. Though there was no formal declaration from the governor yet, I think we had chosen a side. The fates of our species were intertwined, for better or for worse.
Across all the tiny sharp things.
Special K has real strawberries and whole grain. Real ingredients, real delicious. Whether they're furry, scaly, or finned, PetSmart has everything you need. PetSmart.
Memory transcription subject. Captain Sovlin, Federation Fleet Command. Date, standardized human time, September 3rd, 2136. It was a maintenance worker sweeping the ship for any stragglers and found the doctor and I caged in the beast's filthy pen. The reek of waste and blood had been overpowering in the cell, a sickening reminder that the predator had walked those very floors. It felt beneath my dignity to lie in such squalor, with no company but the sulking Zahn. I could still see Marcel's hideous face when I closed my eyes. My heart seized at the thought of those sunken eyes, soulless and scorching. The sound of the human's voice grating in my ears as he tried to offer some deceitful words was unforgettable too. When I saw my first officer chumming it up with that savage, it was no wonder I saw red. What a nightmarish creature it was, I thought. How could anyone ever care for it? Rissel's betrayal stung me more than the burning in my leg ever could. I had taken the Kolshian under my wing for decades and mentored him into a confident officer that commanded respect. How could he shoot me? For that animal? After what the Federation had endured, wasn't I entitled to a few minutes of retribution? The human suffering paled in comparison to the children mauled as arks of toys, of the worlds raised in radiation and fire. The first officer's most offensive statement was comparing me to the Arksa. Since when was protecting my crew from an existential threat a crime? Everyone would be happier with one less human prowling the universe, other than the Venlil, I suppose. They needed to be rescued before the predators sank their claws any deeper.
Sovlin,
Zahn growled.
the Prime Minister is on the line. Are you well enough to speak to her?
It was arduous to round up the crew from various shuttles, but we managed to put the band back together. Placing a medical official with no combat expertise as acting first officer wasn't my first choice, but I needed someone who would support me on matters of human policy. Keeping the crew on a leash was my primary objective. I raised my hobbled leg, studying the azure-stained bandage. Of course I am. Rissel blew off a limb and not my head. Put her on screen. The video call flickered to life, revealing a glaring period.
Sovlin, tell me how you managed to lose a predator in the mere days since your last check-in. The Federation is going to freak out.
Word of Tarver's folly travelled around the Federation within days after we detained our unwelcome guest. Panic was spreading through civilian channels, and public pressure was mounting for an immediate response. Galactic leaders arranged for an emergency convention to discuss joint action, but it would take days for everyone to arrive at the designated meeting spot. More time would be squandered coordinating the forces of hundreds of independent powers. The Khajiit Union was not content to sit on its paws while vacillating foes debated the obvious choice. Destructive measures were necessary at once, before the humans lashed out at the Venlil. We were en route to a Khajiit border station to rendezvous with our bombing partners. Launching for Earth felt like my destiny. I was ecstatic to join the mission, and hoped we could cripple the human breeding grounds. The escapees wouldn't have had time to warn humanity, so our attack would come as an unexpected blow. Now that humans were spacefaring, it was unlikely to eliminate them entirely, but with any luck, their numbers would be reduced to insignificance, and the remnants would wipe each other out with their aggression. The damn predators would have smeared on the name of sentience.
Must your head be always elsewhere? I demand an answer, Captain.
Very hissed.
How did the Predator escape?
I don't know how to say this, but First Officer Roussel shot me and released it, I answered. The Prime Minister recoiled in shock.
Roussel? Why? He's served a D for decades. He's practically Khajiit at this point. What pushed him to such reckless action?
The humans seemed to have an ability to charm others that we didn't account for. They appeared to be able to manipulate empathy and to pretend to be like the rest of us. My first officer said I was being unfair to the Flesh Eater, if you believe that.
Well then, I'll put out a warrant for Roussel's arrest. I'm sure the Koshians will side with us. There's no excuse for the veteran who just watched our briefing videos releasing a human.
She tapped the key buttons on her console, most likely penning a transmission to the Federation.
At least we've gathered some key information from Mr. Barkle. The humans are more intelligent than the Greys and more cooperative.
With respect, ma'am, what makes you say that?
The Axo would have never made it into space without our interference. But these monkeys did it without outside assistance.
I suppose you're right. That only makes their schemes and ruses more complex. They seem quite capable of mirroring empathetic responses.
Indeed. Let's not forget Sovlin. The Venlil are one of the weakest and most emotional races in the galaxy. And that's by our standards. The humans will enjoy turning on them.
My thoughts exactly. Whatever Tava or Roussel say, the only good human is a dead human. And I'm going to see to it that there's a lot of those by next week.
I commend your courage. Oh, and Captain, be warned that we've lost contact with 2 military outposts that were slated to join the bombing run. Our scouts are going to look in, but I'd stay alert.
I flared my nostrils in dismay. The humans would have had to know about our scheme days ago to launch any countermeasures, and that was inexplicable. Clairvoyance wasn't a predator trait, to my knowledge. Tava wouldn't be idiotic enough to tell humanity about the Federation's earlier plans, would she? That would be begging for retribution. Venlil involvement in the plot was extensive, according to my files. Due to Earth's proximity to their borders, they prodded the Federation to act quicker. The decades our leaders spent dawdling was the time for the Predators to advance. Perhaps the humans had kidnapped some Venlil quietly and were torturing them out of Tava's eye. There were a myriad of ways they could have obtained information. I'll report it if I hear anything. It could be the Arxa, though it's impeccable timing if so, I said. Piri flicked her ears.
Perhaps. Is it then that I almost hope it's the Greys? Take care of yourself, Sovlin.
The call blinked out, and I turned my attention to the viewport. The blue dot on screen was an unnamed Khajiit colony with a population around 20,000. Its border location lacked appeal for potential settlers due to the inherent peril. Its only drawing point was dirt-cheap housing. The humans will push everyone closer to home soon enough. Our resources are already strained with a single enemy, I pondered. Our military launch point was lodged on the large asteroid just below the colony's orbit. It functioned as a hub for bomber squadrons and defensive units. I spotted a few Khajiit patrol ships adrift to the system's outer reaches. Spacecraft were ready to fight at all hours of the day in case of any acts of incursions. Everything appeared to be normal, but Piri's warning lingered in my mind. Predators loved stealth and ambush tactics. If our attackers were the humans, that was more proof that they were the same as the Greys. It was their nature to catch others off guard and helpless. Halt out of docking range, I shouted. Scan the perimeter for ship activity. Better safe than sorry. It could do no harm to supplement our station's intel from a different vantage point. Sensors didn't reveal any subspace disruptions or gravitational disturbances at first glance. However, there were a few stray radio signals by the system's gas giants that seemed peculiar. That caught my attention, and I decided to make some further investigation.
What are those coordinates you've input? Why returning the viewport?
Zahn asked. I tapped my claws nervously. Nothing, I hope. We'll see soon enough. Zooming in on the source of the EMF anomaly, the formation of angular ships became visible. Gasps sounded across the bridge. My spines raised in an instant, and I gaped at the startling image. How could an enemy have gotten within the system unseen? Lurking near celestial bodies with high masses to evade detection was possible, in theory, but there wasn't a more dangerous place to disengage warp. While a strong gravitational field masked an incoming subspace trail, it would leave the ships at risk of being drawn into orbit. It would require incredible patience as well. To avoid discovery, those vessels needed to engage in a series of tiny jumps. That was the only way to ensure that their trail didn't poke into real space at an unwanted moment. Did those ships really hop between high gravity spots and wait for their drive to respool each time? Not utilizing continuous warp transit would increase travel time tenfold. That's no Axis strategy, I thought. These humans learn quickly, and it seems they gamble with their lives. Knowing the Terran position, the computer was able to tease out sensor readings. A rough estimation of their capabilities would help us concoct a plan of attack. What is their shield capacity? I barked. Zahn's eyes stretched wide in panic.
I don't know. How do I read this shit?
I missed Roussel immensely. Let me see. With a sigh of irritation, I pulled up the data feed on my workstation. Why, the primitive...
Meet this summer's new grilling go-to from PC. Shop it now.
Pulled up the data feed on my workstation. Why, the primitive... Not a trace of ion generators. I don't think they figured out how to power shields.
Sounds like great news. What are your orders, sir?
The doctor asked. My disappointment with Zahn was already mounting. A lackey wasn't what I desired deep down. I wanted a first officer with their own ideas, who was willing to challenge me when their thoughts were contrary. The thought of Roussel wasting in a cell or being toasted over a fire by the humans felt like such a damn waste. A fine man who threw away his career over some misplaced idealism. Charged the railgun, but slow and subtle. We don't want to alarm the humans. A sharp pain stabs in my leg, the first sign of the painkillers waning. In the meantime, let's amplify and intercept those radio signals. I think two of the ships are talking to each other. While Zahn stood around like a lost child, the comm station pounced on my order. Static fed through the PA, an incoherent buzzing. The technicians took a few moments to fine-tune the settings, and my ears perked up in anticipation. Catching the predators red-handed, gloating over the prospect of eating and torturing sentients would squash any doubts. It should even be enough to win back the Ben Lil. I wondered if Tarva knows about the cheap tactics her friends employ. I mused. What does she see in these skin-eaters? She'll be begging us to take the Venno back by tomorrow.
May. Too harsh on them.
A thunderous voice echoed over the loudspeakers, sinking into its captive audience. It was so quiet on the bridge that you could hear a pin drop.
The Arks have traumatized the Xenos, and we're just making it worse. They'll think we're just like them, Sadi. This'll be their proof. They're going to attack Earth if we don't,
came the tired reply.
It's a military base, nothing more. It's fair game. Maya didn't put any civilian targets on the list. But the Khajiits haven't done anything yet. There's still time for them to change their mind. We should have tried to negotiate. Raj, are you mad? They would drop bombs in London, Mumbai or Lagos without even thinking for a second. They don't want to talk to us. I know. I just signed on to fight the Arks, and now, it's not like I imagined. This is not the time for second thought.
I need like a gone bathroom sign. I just wanted to see space. Get the. Radio again. I haven't done anything yet. I don't want to be like them. I'm not like them.
We'll offer medical assistance to any survivors. I'm certain the UN and the Ben Lil will try to broker peace. But right now, this is about surviving. This is about humanity.
I blinked in confusion. Much of my crew looked dazed, as though they were having trouble processing the conversation. From the two humans' words, you would think it was the Khajiits who were the villains in this scenario, not the stealth ships drifting in on a clueless station. Why were those Predator pilots talking like they felt sorry for us? Why did both of them sound like they wanted peace, as though it were their own objective? Soft old Phil, I cursed myself. How did you almost fall for such a basic trap? It must be some sort of trickery, an empathetic ploy in case anyone was listening in. If we hesitated to shoot against craft, that lent them a strategic advantage. There was no other reason to talk and give away their position. It was that charm ability I mentioned in Piri. No wonder the Venlil had fallen for it after prolonged exposure to their smooth tongues. Turn that off, I hissed. Delete all records of that conversation. They're trying to manipulate us.
But how could they know we were listening, Sovlin?
The comms technician asked.
What if they actually meant that, and we just keep trying to harm them?
Humans don't understand what peace means, you numbskull. They're parroting something the Venlil told them. The young analyst scowled.
Sir, you have the authority to get our station to stand down. I think we should hail them and offer a truce. Then we can see what they do. At least that way we have no regrets.
I have no regrets as it is. If you want to talk to predators, you can get on a shuttle and fly over there yourself. The words predator seemed to snap the crew out of their trance, and I saw a few tail waves of agreement. The technician shuffled on his paws before he pressed the delete button on his station. A high-pitched beep disrupted the silence, showing our weapons were charged and operational. I leaned back in my chair. Fire the railgun. The humans aren't getting this system.
Fire at who?
Jemmy, my weapons officer, pointed at the viewport in horror.
Where did they go?
My eyes widened in panic. The colony. They're making a run on the colony. Damn it, I knew it was a distraction. I fired up a transmission to the station, warning them of the ambush. My heart felt heavy. I prayed that my communique reached them in time. My recommended course of action was to divert defenses to the colony and prepare for an orbital raid. The humans claimed that they were attacking the base, but even if that were the state of mission, predators couldn't resist landing the killing blow on a hapless prey once in range. The colony was a much juicier target. A solemn silence gripped the bridge as we turned our own course toward the planet. Even with such a small population, there was no way we could evacuate in time. My stomach flipped at the thought of needless death, of another atmosphere choked in flame. This wasn't my first siege, but it never got easier. We had to stop the humans from continuing the Arx's legacy of destruction.
Advice. Everybody's got some advice.
I does.
There are books on advice, even shows on advice. There's no food cookie cutter, one size fits all. Trust me, I know it all advice. Maybe it's time for a different kind of advice. Advice that comes from getting to know you, that understands your perspective before giving you a new one. Scotiabank, you're richer than you think.
Memory transcription subject. Captain Sutton, Federation Fleet Command. Date, standardized unit time, September 3rd, 2136. Worst case scenario flashed through my mind as the G ship formed a defensive wall around the colony. I tried to imagine how the people on the ground felt, trapped and aware of the impending assault. This sea of dots spanning the blue oaks of mountains was all that stood between the innocent and hungry predators. Any angle that was overlooked was an opportunity for the humans to break through. We would stop any missiles from penetrating our ranks by throwing our craft in the way, if necessary. The only way a battle with the Predator ended was with all of them dead. Or all of us dead. The primitive nature of the human craft was our primary hope. A single hit should be enough to dispatch their ships. Hell, the station's lasers might be able to chew through more than one at a time. Our weaponry was designed to tear through Arx's armor, and the Terror's defenses were negligible.
Sir, the ships have reappeared just out of targeting range.
Jimmy Farr, a tremor in her voice. I hoped the weapons officer could keep her wits.
On a trajectory course for the base.
The viewpod locked onto the hostiles. I watched as they veered off onto multiple headings and altered their course to avoid any intercepting ships we launched. A laser lanced out from the station, a streak of brilliancy across the void. The shot connected with the Terran bomber and obliterated the Predator craft in a flash. Happiness fluttered in my chest, though it was tempered by nerves. It was encouraging that we had attained the first kill of the war. The humans, in response, spewed plasma at the approaching Vijay ships. They seemed to walk backward waters off, like banishing a torch to keep a beast at bay. Weapons of that caliber couldn't deal more than minor damage, but I knew they had to preserve their main payload for their target. It occurred to me that we had simplified the task of bombing the station for the humans. The predators were flowing toward their stated target, and in many ways my suggestions cleared the path. There wasn't a single sign of deviation, which boggled my mind. The asteroid base dispatched as many ships as it could and left its own defences barren in the process. When given the choice, our commanders prioritised civilian lives over military infrastructure. Things can be replaced. Stations can be rebuilt, I chided myself. Cannot. There are children down there. I couldn't help but wonder for a split second if this was a lapse in judgment on my part. Where was that predatory sadism, the one Zahn said humans used on their own world? The last thing I wanted was to cost the Gajigi Union valuable resources. It was worse if some soldiers didn't make it from their barracks. Their deaths would weigh on my conscience for years. But there was no way a predator could override their bloodlust, particularly while engaged in warfare. It was a matter of time before the humans rounded on our position. At least a few ships had to give in to temptation, even if the majority could resist. Shoot the bastards! Blast them out of the sky! I roared. Jemik sighed.
I just said they're out of range, sir. We need to move closer.
We are not abandoning our position. The second the planet is vulnerable, they'll pounce. My mind yearned to fight the humans myself, but I had to remember the stakes at hand. We were consigned to watching, as though this skirmish was some spectator sport. Zahn was cheering each time a Terran vessel went up in a fireball, which earned strange glances from the nearest crew. The predators weaved erratic patterns to avoid termination, but their arrows and zigzags weren't fast enough. Every crack of the laser purged one of the vermin. The station's defences were slow to recharge, but their effectiveness was dazzling. In fairness, it seemed a Luftwaffe could take out a Terran ship. The workmanship was rather thrilling. Gajig craft remained hot on the humans' heels and spit our own concentrated plasma at them. There was no breathing space for our attackers. The predators rocketed up to max acceleration and towed a tighter line toward the base. It was wonderful to see our ships chasing the humans. How the tables had turned from the natural order. The hunter was the hunted.
Captain, the predators are showing no interest in the colony. I don't see the harm in taking a few ships at the battlefield.
Jemik pressed. They're just trying to lose their pursuers. If they can get us away from the colony's defense, that's what they want. Their spines bristled.
I hate feeling powerless.
As do I. Zahn, why don't you make yourself useful? I gestured toward the doctor, who was transfixed by the battle. Establish contact with Piri if at all possible. Make her aware of the predator's tactics so she can relay a warning to all nearby installations. The Takan returned an eager tail swish and scrambled to reopen communication lines. My gaze darted back to the viewport. I looked just in time to catch a glimpse of a Terran fighter taking a round to the belly. The plasma compromised its hull integrity and reduced it to a fractured heap of metal. There was no hesitation from the Gajig chasers to bombard the incapacitated ship with fire. Nobody would be foolish enough to leave the predator alive. They needed to be taken out of the fight with permanence. As long as such a monster was still kicking, they could have a final trick up their sleeves.
Your damaged hair needs the deep
Hello.
blonde repair by L'Oreal.
How are you doing tonight?
Our deepest repair that rebuilds hair from the
Trying to get some
inside.
projects done, so I'm
77% of women
cutting
find it as
things
efficient
out.
as a $125
Can I get a second?
blonde repair
I'd
by
like a
L'Oreal
thumbs
Paris.
up. Give it a minute. If not, don't worry about it.
Well, you need to sound like yourself. But
Whoa, I almost got that in the face. Come on, you.
when you're brainstorming a big idea or chasing your next great opportunity,
We look forward to
Come on, you motherfucker.
Partnering with you. That's really good.
with Grammarly Go, you can do it all.
Okay. Commercials, I don't care.
Clustered back together and opted to deal with the gaining pursuers one at a time. They peppered the closest Gajig ship with fire and concentrated their strikes in its drive column. The patroller's engine went up with a colossal flare. Debris was flung in all directions. Our other allies were forced to drop back to avoid getting swept up in the blast's wake. Stars! I hate humans, I seethed. They don't quit or retreat. I cursed my ancestors for not confirming their extinction centuries ago. This is going to be a tedious and costly war, even if we win. The predators had endured a hailstorm of fire and pressed nearer to the base all the same. No matter how many of their brethren were reduced to scrap, they persevered. Watching the humans' fearlessness, I couldn't help but envy their natural disposition. They shrugged off losses with that callous disregard for life they were so famed for. We felt our casualties. That was the Federation's downfall against the Arxer. It was emotion that lost us the war. Predators saw only the mission, the kill.
Captain, we have to do something.
Jimmy growled. I flicked my ears. It's too late. They're almost within orbital range. While the Ghajiit defenses could deal with the humans handily, they wouldn't win the race against time. The Predators could survive just long enough. Pesky monsters. Sensing that their goal was within reach, our opponents found a final burst of speed. The lead bombers dispensed their payloads, and cylindrical missiles zoomed in on the asteroid's surface. I braced myself for the inevitable aftermath. The Ghajiit patrollers lunged forward in desperate pursuit, but they were already too late. Explosions detonated across the complex, tearing through the expanse of stone buildings. Flames enveloped anything in the explosion's proximity. Smoke blooms pushed up within the artificial atmosphere. Hangar roofs caved in, buried any ships we failed to get off the ground. The powerful laser was out of commission too, since our orbital defenses were tucked in the center of the base. Bunkers and training areas were pummeled into submission. I wondered how many servicemen were trapped beneath the rubble. The humans followed up their first volley with another barrage. There was no pause or emotion, though I don't know why I thought there would be. The subsequent explosions ensured that nothing was standing and reduced any likelihood of survivors. The horror on the bridge was a choking atmosphere. Amidst my grief, I couldn't help but feel responsible for this calamity. Our local garrison could have stopped them if there had been a few more ships at our disposal. Why are the humans not turning toward the colony? They're alive and I think still have some bombs. They should come towards any minute now. The Predator ships dipped away, but were unable to shrug off their pursuers. The Terrans branched off on individual courses. They knew we couldn't chase after all of them. Some of those foul creatures would escape. Wait. I shook my head in disbelief. They can't be leaving.
The humans did exactly what they said.
My head swiveled in the direction of the voice. It was that unruly comms analyst from earlier.
They never intended to attack any civilians.
They just annihilated a military base. And that's your reaction, I snarled.
None of the evidence suggests that they wanted to. We forced their hand,
the technician growled. I glowered at the scene in the stars, considering the Predator's departure. What more evidence did one need beyond looking at their faces? Their blood-stained history was just the icing on the cake, confirming what our eyes already knew. The humans could be faking a retreat to lull us into a false sense of security. The bombers were still within close range of the asteroid, and it would take them a while to escape the system. Their strategy could be to double back after we assumed they were leaving. That, or our considerable presence by the colony dissuaded them from heeding their impulses. These creatures were more intelligent and slightly more self-aware than the Arxer. They must have recognized that they were outmatched. That was a sufficient explanation, wasn't it? I forced myself to lower my hackles. What's your name, kid?
Rumi.
Rumi. I respect your drive to question everything, even common knowledge, but this isn't the right cause to fight for. If humans were a species of any merit, do you think that the Federation would have dug up some argument to spare them? In decades of study?
I don't know.
Think about it. That goes on agreeing with the young man here. And yes, we did force their hand. We forced the humans to concede civilian targets because of our overwhelming force.
How so? We're in the wrong place.
We're in the right place. Our presence deterred the humans from attacking anything else. Everyone should be proud of themselves today. We saved 20,000 lives. Rumi slumped his shoulders.
If you say so.
I imagine our allies have grown as restless as my crew. Seeing that the promise of the humans raiding the colony wasn't panning out, some captains may be tempted to pursue the fleeing ships. Sensors indicated that many were gearing up their drives and that our meticulous formation was dissolving. Now was not the time for this. The Predators were still in the system. All we needed was a few minutes of patience to save the colony. I leaned over my microphone. Ghajiit vessels, hold your positions. Do not let the humans bait you into weakening our defenses.
I'm not just sitting here, damn it.
A voice pierced through our encrypted military channel.
We're going to attempt to search and rescue and render medical assistance to anyone alive.
My eyes darted about the viewport, searching for any signs of movement. A Ghajiit hospital craft had tripped away from our ranks and commenced a blazing run toward the base. Its course placed it directly in the path of an escaping human. Sensors read that the Terran ship had target locked the vessel, and their weapons were charging. Turn back now, I pleaded into the comms. You won't be rescuing anyone if you're turned to slag. I'll escort you myself when the humans are gone. The first responders pressed forward in defiance and diverted their central power to shields. The fleeing Predator held a plasma round, which deflected off our ship's nose. The medical transport seemed shaken by the contact, though it refused to turn back. The distance between them and those things was narrowing. This was lunacy. What were those Ghaji doctors thinking? I admired their commitment to saving lives, but they were setting up the exact scenario I feared. Abort! I shrieked into the communicator, broadcasting the message in all frequencies this time. Ghaji medical vessel, turn back at once. The predators will destroy you. There was no reply from the Ghaji first responders. They were unarmed, which meant they stood no chance in combat. Worse, the Terran ship might have heard my plea and realized what an easy target they stumbled upon. I waited to see the doctors blasted to bits, feeling pity swell in my chest. On the bright side, at least it would drill some sense into Rumi and whoever else was swayed by him. The expressions around the bridge were finally the ones I recognized from our face-offs with the Arxa. For some inexplicable reason, the human ship hesitated. Sensors suggested that their weapons were powering down and they were altering their course to avoid a collision. I was certain my eyes deceived me as the primates allowed the medical ship to pass their position.
What about that, Captain? What could they possibly gain?
Ruby hissed. I chewed in my claws, rattled to the core. Allowing the vessel to survive that aimed to resuscitate enemy combatants was in direct opposition to the Predator's goals. Why would those abominations exhibit mercy? That was the exact brand of illogical softness we were mocked for by the Arxa, but accepting any explanation that mandated emotion was out of the question. There had to be an ulterior motive at play. There just had to be. Like I told the crew, the Federation condemned humanity by unanimous vote. They wouldn't make that decision lightly. Perhaps I wasn't looking at the big picture. The humans need the Venno for now. They can't afford to alienate their lone ally when they're so behind technologically. I soothed myself. Tarver must have sent someone to supervise, so they managed to show restraint. They're biding their time. Alarm flashed through Rumi's body language as he saw me struggling to formulate a response. The doctor rolled his eyes in disgust and turned to address us all.
They wanted to preserve ammunition when they realized the ship wasn't a threat.
Zan answered for me.
Humans are pragmatic enough to override their sadism when it comes to their own survival.
Quite possible. I managed to keep my voice steady. The Predators were doing an excellent job messing with my head, if nothing else. Whatever game the humans are playing at, we know their true colours. We always have, and we always will.
Oh. Kitty bear. Thumb.
Can a car exceed your expectations?
I'm gonna sew this guy up, and then I'm gonna go get the bases for the Flower Pot friends.
On the Civic lineup.
I got some galvanized nails, so they shouldn't rust.
So just make it a Friday.
At least not for
Memory
a couple of
transcription
years.
subject. Governor Tava of the Venlil Republic. Date. Standardized human time. September 5th, 2136. The essential Terran dignitaries were present in the meeting hall alongside the top-ranking Venlo staff. I settled down in the chair between Noah and Cam, which was turning into the typical seating arrangement. There was satisfaction in finding the Predator's presence so normal and routine. The importance of this conference could not be understated. The UN was determining which parties to take action against in the Federation, and whether diplomatic avenues could prove a suitable alternative to violence. There was no reversing the war against the Gajids. The damage done to their repute by Sovlin was catastrophic, but perhaps not everyone had to get suckered into this shit show. That was why I hoped Brissel would show at the meeting. The Federation officer hadn't left his room since his arrival, and had barely picked that the mails were delivered by his door. My attempt to speak with him were met with a half-hearted "go away." It was all I could do to inform him of the planned start time and remind him once more on my way to the assembly hall. In case the Kolshian did accept our invitation, we wanted to make him as comfortable as possible. The humans were wearing opaque visors to conceal their eyes and surgical masks to obscure their menacing snarls. The UN personnel were quite accommodating. It would likely be standard procedure for any future first contact. My eyes flickered over to Noah. Without the predatory features to both the humans, they looked squishy and weak. Those hands were more attuned to picking berries or climbing trees than combat, which was probably close to the truth. They lacked any form of camouflage for stealth, and weren't that quick.
That one's done.
Even their spell and healing was subpar. What kind of predators are they? They always mention tools when asked. They manage the subject, I thought. Perhaps they're ashamed of their natural weakness.
I look ridiculous in this Tava. I prefer a full helmet rather than this cyborg doctor cosplay.
Noah hissed. I stifled her off. I understood half of what he said. But this allows you to drink water, and I hope it's less stuffy. He must have been miserable on that first TV appearance.
Oh, I think I was just trying to remember to breathe. You have no idea how in awe we were.
The ambassador leaned back in his chair and waved a hand for emphasis.
I realized how important that moment was. Sometimes I still think to myself that I dreamed it all.
It is like a fever dream, isn't it? It's all so strange. Oh, speaking of strange, there's something I've been meaning to ask you.
Go on.
We've noticed some unusual behavior from your human volunteers. Mildly concerning.
Dear God, what have we done?
Just all sorts of bizarre reports which I'm increasingly baffled by. Multiple cases of humans speaking in high-pitched voices when asking Venlil to do things, or even saying hello.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Giving us toys that make ear-piercing squeaks when touched. Sometimes throwing objects and begging us to retrieve them. I don't understand the purpose.
That would be demeaning. Sorry about that.
And you're so obsessed with our fur. Always trying to touch it and talking about how soft it is. Some people suggested you wanted to harvest it. Noah recoiled, and I figured his eyes were wide with horror.
Nothing like that. We just, like cute animals?
Why?
It sparks our nurturing instincts, releases dopamine, which makes us happy.
But you don't do any of that.
You're a planetary leader, and I'm a terrifying beast to you. It'd be wholly inappropriate and unprofessional. Though I confess, as for the last one, the thought has crossed my mind.
You don't scare me anymore, Noah. But if you must, I'd prefer you try any fur petting on Cam than me. I'd get a laugh seeing him bite your head off.
Do you?
Cam glared at us, clearly eavesdropping in our conversation.
Don't even think about it, Tava. It's going to be your fault if Noah loses a finger or two.
Good thing I have 10 of them.
Noah stretched his hand in the military advisor's direction, and the Venlil jumped up from the table. The human brought his arm back to his chest with a laugh. Secretary General Laya broke off his conversation with his generals.
Well, I see we're all wonderful at sitting still, aren't we, Ambassador Williams?
We were just playing around.
Noah replied.
I see that. A lot of mature adults here.
The UN leader heaved an exasperated sigh. I was no expert in human body language, but his posture screamed of exhaustion.
Right. This meeting was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. No sign of Rissell. Let's get started.
I pulled up the briefing material on my holopad and refreshed my memory one last time. The human generals had forwarded a proposition for a ground invasion of the Gajid homeworld. I'd given it a cursory review in advance of this gathering and discussed with my advisors what our role should be. It was ironic since I knew what those plans were derived from. They were offshoots of the original tactics we drew up together to invade the Axa. Brandishing those ideas against our former allies which were designed to raid sentient farm worlds felt dirty. There were some modifications stressing the preservation of civilians where possible. I was surprised to see the humans adhering to their warfare rules under the circumstances. The stated objective was to capture government leaders and to force the Gajidi Union's capitulation. I couldn't disagree that the only way to bring them to the negotiating table was at gunpoint. They'd amassed an annihilation force from the discovery of a single human.
I take it we're all familiar with this operation. It is an ambitious task, I know.
General Zhao stated. General Jones tugged at her mask.
But ground fighting and atmospheric warfare, that's our territory. I'm confident in our chances.
Prime time!
Purina Prime, dog cheese and treats. There's a taste of adventure.
I forgot the glass upstairs, damn it.
Territory. I'm confident in our chances.
The problem is which ships to use for the battle above. To transport a proper amount of soldiers.
Zhao finished.
Candidly, our ships just don't cut it in any way.
You'll use Venlil ships for whatever you need for now, and that's final. We'll give you our blueprints too, so you can build yourself a proper armada. I glanced at Noah for support and was relieved to see an encouraging nod. With our knowledge in hand, I know you can make improvements in our designs. It will help us both in the long run. I don't wish to keep anything from you anymore.
That's very generous of you, Governor. Thank you.
Maya said.
We will repay.
The door creaked open, which about made me jump out of my fur. Our violet skins, Kolshin slunk into the room and surveyed the occupants with hesitancy. I was grateful the humans had kept their face coverings on. Even with the precautions, the Federation officer was trembling. My ears perked up. Rissell, we didn't think you were coming. Please, sit down. It was promising that he showed up, since he was the best hope of peace. Then again, he was a wild card. Rousseau could outright insult the humans and inflame the situation. I don't think the UN representatives, or for that matter, any Van Lille present, would take kindly to a defense of Sovlin's actions either.
I wasn't sure I would come myself.
The Kolshin side.
But we must all live with the choices we make. Here I am.
It's come to our attention that you find it hard to look at us.
Secretary General Meyer gestured to his facial attire.
We've elected to wear these visors so that you don't feel that we're staring at you. Does that help?
Rousseau waved his tail.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you. You have the sincere gratitude of our planet for your heroism and compassion. Knowing your feelings toward predators, I suspect you will decline my offer. But we are more than willing to give you asylum on Earth, should you so desire.
I appreciate the offer. You diverge from the Arxer in many ways that I have seen. But I don't think I could ever live among you.
We understand. If you truly cannot abide our looks, I mean, it's hurtful, but not unexpected.
Meyer's words about the sting of the galaxy's cold-shouldered treatment ran true. My mind flickered back to how wounded Noah looked when he learned that the Van Lille planned to kill humanity. The crestfallen look on his face when I described my initial impression of him to Rousseau. Maybe I shouldn't have been quite so honest, even if it soothed the first officer. The Yemen played it off as a joke, but I suspect he did need some kind words on occasion. It must be awful to be shunned as a monster constantly, to feel rejected and unwanted, to have every action under a microscope. Noah had been dealing with Van Lille gawking or panicking at the sight of him for months. Did he understand that I cared for him despite my instinct? I patted Noah on the hand absent-mindedly, and he squeezed my paw in return. Rousseau drew a deep breath.
All right. What else do you want of me?
Coexistence is all we seek from anyone.
Meyer replied.
I don't know how to achieve that from a federation that seeks to genocide humanity. I'd like your opinion, because my own outlook is quite bleak.
Some in the Federation might be open to hearing your case if they can get past the... you know. I've had a lot of time to think, and I believe human history may have been studied through a narrow lens. It's so ingrained that predators are inherently evil. We might have overlooked the forest for the trees.
And where does that leave us? I don't think the Gajids are the only ones plotting an attack in the Federation. If you have any ideas for a peaceful resolution, I'm all ears. But we intend to defend Earth to the last.
The Kolshin's demeanor shifted in an instant, and suddenly an authoritative officer was present.
You could start by releasing the hostages. Now. Peaceful species don't hold diplomats and civilians against their will.
That was my doing, Rousseau, I chimed in. After what happened with Marcel, you can see why I thought it necessary.
But I agree with him, Tava. It reflects poorly on humanity, because regardless of the truth, everyone will fault us in that matter. The Federation must be worried for their citizens' condition.
Meyer tapped his fingers on the table, deep in thought.
It will help our case for their own people to validate what has been said by the Van Lille. We should allow anyone to leave that wishes to.
News of our existence is out.
No, I did.
The damage is already done. There's no reason to keep them here.
I flicked my ears. Very well. I'll reopen the borders tonight. At least for outbound ships. Rousseau's eyes widened in surprise. It was obvious the officer had been expecting resistance rather than for the predators to side with him.
Good. That's settled. I knew that ideas, Rousseau.
Meyer asked.
The Federation is holding a summit a few days from now. They're going to discuss what to do regarding humanity. You could send a representative. Perhaps they would let you say a few words in your defense.
What's to stop the Federation from covering up anything we say? Any information we give them, or anything that contradicts their narrative? It sounds like your leadership has already made up their minds.
The Federation aren't out to dupe their own citizens. They just can't have another Arxer. Everything will be broadcast, so even if the leadership won't budge, you could sway public opinion.
But you obviously aren't convinced that the Federation will let a human speak at all, Rousseau. What's to stop them from slotting a collar on our representative and bashing their face in two? Or shooting them on sight?
Honestly, nothing. I can't predict how they'll react. I would have thought we'd better than that at one time, but I don't anymore.
I couldn't send anyone to that fate. It would be akin to murder.
I swished my tail in agreement. After watching a human pilot brutalized at the hands of a Federation crew, the risks were fresh in everyone's memory. It was a senseless sacrifice that could be for nothing. The Federation would be reluctant to let a predator voice its thoughts. Rousseau knew better than anyone how deep-seated their hatred ran.
I'll go.
Noah said. My pupil snapped toward him. Absolutely not. I don't want to see you killed or maimed as a hobrat.
I'm not afraid of dying. If there is a single species like the Van Lille out there, I find it a worthy cause.
The ambassador gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder and turned his head toward Maya.
All I ask is for a cyanide capsule. I don't know if I could bear torture. I want a way out if it comes to that.
The Secretary General hesitated.
Are you sure? I couldn't tell you, not with a straight face, that I believe you'll come home.
Quite sure. And I'd like to leave as soon as possible. There's no time to waste.
Horror chilled my blood. The last person I wanted to fall into Federation custody was my sweet, forgiving Noah. He was a godsend in the ambassadorial role, always with a perfect read on my emotions and willing to answer every awkward question. I had come to think of him as one of my own advisors. Perhaps I was a bit too reliant on him to diffuse tense situations. I'll go with you then, I hissed. I'll try to protect you, though I don't think I can do much. My standing with the Federation has diminished.
Tava, no. What if they hurt you? They threw a Van Lille in the cage with the starving predator, remember?
They won't do that to me. I'm a planetary leader, and the galaxy will be watching. I'm not worried for my safety. Roussel lowered his eyes.
Please allow me to accompany you as well. I was to turn myself in for high treason.
We don't want you punished for helping us.
Maya said.
I know, but my testimony may be helpful in balancing what Sovlin has told them. And I wish to be home, whatever happens. My heart lies with the Federation.
If that's what you really want, you're not a prisoner.
Disappointment seeped into the UN leader's tone.
I do wish you would reconsider, though.
I won't.
Very well. Good luck to all of you then.
Noah stood up from his chair and extended his hand to the Secretary General. Maya tugged at it in that quirky grappling ritual humans did. It felt like a final goodbye, though I hoped that wasn't the case. I wondered what the gentle ambassador could say that would dissuade the Federation. He needed to challenge hundreds of years of research and flip assumptions without getting killed. It was a tall task, even for a man who epitomized the best of humanity.
Should be doing this on class, but I'm not.
Memory transcription subject. Governor Tava of the Van Lille Republic.
I thought I'd make more of these, but I don't.
Standardized Human time, September 10th, 2136. Took patrol ship Roof to intercept our transport the second we crossed the Zerurian border. There was none of the warmth in their greeting that I craved. I hoped that dodging Khajiit territory would lower the temperature of any interactions, but word travelled quickly. Our neighbours possessed a keen awareness that the Van Lille had thrown in our lot with predators. We were guilty by association now. I assured the Zerurians of my diplomatic intent and decided not to mention the Guards' presence until we reached our destination. After several back-and-forth conversations, the Guards received permission to escort us to the summit. I suspect they wouldn't have allowed it if they knew a human and a traitor were the other two passengers. The Federation chaperones were diligent, tailing us through subspace for the duration of the days-long trip. I still don't know how I'm going to convince them to let a predator play politics. Maybe I should just wing it. Our transport was midway through its descent now, plunging through the host planet atmosphere. It was apparent what Roussel meant by returning home. The Kolshian homeworld, Arthur, a name that translates to garden, was hosting the convention in its capital. It would require great care not to incite a stampede with the crowd I anticipated. Millions of visitors dwelled among artistic buildings and botanical wonders. The renowned School of the Flora meant Arthur had a large student population. There would be ample spectators at the governing hall, since such sessions were open to the public. If a predator was reported on the loose, the premises might be vacated or locked down. I wondered if the nearest civilians would be roofed to bunkers, the way I had done when the humans approached my planet. It seemed silly in retrospect, sending out a planetary distress signal over a two-person vessel. Someday I was going to tell Noah that I intended to surrender Van Lille Prime to him. The Terran ambassador would have a hearty laugh at my expense. This is Governor Tava. I reiterate my request to speak to the presiding chieftain immediately. It is urgent, I transmitted for the 4th time. My designated strategy was to hail the Federation over the media channels, so that if anything went wrong, the public could hold them accountable. Roussel was sandwiched beside me in order to appear in our video feed. The Kolshian officer couldn't stop yawning. His orange eyes were bleedy from sleep deprivation. I was amazed he hadn't nodded off from exhaustion, regardless of his instinct. Noah was preoccupied editing the first contact materials the UN had thrown together. The predators seemed uncharacteristically nervous. I knew he wanted to paint a rosy picture of humanity and to include anything that might help their cause. Wasn't he displaying that closed body language he explained to me long ago? Maybe I was projecting my feelings onto...
Okay, I gotta get these upstairs and into the oven. And of course it is, right? something really dumb, like really, really dumb. Like, you cook something in the oven, and it's done, so you open the oven door and you walk away. But you forget to turn the oven off, so it's just sitting there, doing its thing, warming up the kitchen. Yep. There we go. Oh, by the way, I put some new items up in my Etsy shop if anybody's interested. Let's see. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. A lot of clay. Time to get funky. Yeah, I just need to sit down and mix it up. Oh boy. I didn't listen to these in order, so I'm a little confused.
I was terrified about what would happen to him next.
He's signing on now. Please be patient.
Came the monotone reply.
Your favour here is straight as things are, Governor.
I was aware of the fact that our ship was target locked. That wasn't exactly standard procedure for an approaching diplomat. A large security force was present to ward off any acts or attacks in case they got a whiff of the convention's location. The Federation couldn't afford to have every galactic leader killed in the decapitation strike. We're not part of the Federation anymore, are we? I realized with a pang of sorrow. I'm probably going to be offering our withdrawal today. If they don't kick us out first. The Terran ambassador clapped his hands together in what I believed was satisfaction, and jolted me out of my thoughts. Rousseau whined at the unexpected movement, and the human dipped his head in apology.
All set, Tava.
Noah whispered.
Send it over.
I tapped a button on my holopad, uploading the data cache to the local internet. The compilation documented everything that had transpired since first contact. It also went over humanity's surprising ability to form attachments and the cultural nuances the Federation overlooked in past research. That was the narrative I wanted to circulate. I shared the file wherever I thought I could get traction. Social media, discussion boards, and private messages to reporters. With any luck, a few figures in the media would pick it up and ignite a public discourse. Even if they were laughing at the notion, it would introduce viewers to the idea of a friendly predator.
You!
A call sheet with indigo coloration appeared on screen, and I recognized him as the senior chief Nikonus. A scowl marred his features as he spotted the officer beside me.
We heard what you did, Rousseau. Shooting your own captain and releasing a predator.
There were extenuating circumstances. Rousseau is remanding himself to your custody, I said. Nikonus squinted at the video feed.
You look terrible. The guilt must be eating you alive.
The treasonous officer poured at his eyes.
No, I just can't slink a wink, chopped with this creature. It's not his fault. He covered his eyes for the entire ride. He just tried staying out of sight, but knowing that he's present.
Creature? What is Rousseau babbling about, Tava?
The caution leader growled. Don't freak out, okay? Please. I turned the camera toward the masked predator who flailed his hand in front of him. There is Noah, a third and final passenger on our ship. He wants to speak to all of you. Chief Nikonus' eyes bulged.
Is that?
A human, yes.
Why would you bring a predator here? Are you trying to set it loose on us?
All we want is to talk. You're about to attack his planet. Shouldn't you hear from this supposedly evil species first before you make a permanent decision? Doesn't he have a right to defend himself?
Absolutely not. If you weren't on that vessel, Governor, I'd ordered it shot down.
There was no hesitation from the Colchian host, which wasn't a promising sign. Would Lyconis even allow our ship to land at all? What would deter them from gunning Noah down the second he set foot on the station? You permitted his entry before you knew of the human's presence, I pleaded. Do the Venlil have the right to address the galaxy? The chief flared his nostrils.
You have a right to speak, not to stay your words with events on record. You're still a member of the Federation. At least for now.
Well, I wish for Noah to speak in my stead and to be treated with the same rights as a Venlil citizen. Look in my eyes. I consider him one of my own.
You have snapped, Tava. There's millions of people down here who don't want that thing to set foot in our capital. Some of us still value our lives.
It's one predator versus all of you. You have him well outnumbered.
I can't let a dangerous beast into the governing chamber. What's to stop it from eating the nearest reader on television? To stand and gloat about the taste of our children's blood?
He won't.
But what if it does?
Then you'll have documentation of what humanity was like when the Federation is asked by future generations why we made this decision.
Wissel interjected.
But I'm telling you, these predators are more civilized than they look.
Please, Lyconis. Let Noah say what is foolish to say. You don't want people to think you have something to hide, do you? What harm can a few words do?
They can speak for 5 minutes, and not a second longer. If it so much as stares at anyone the wrong way and stumbles in its footing, it will be shot.
The Colchian chief waved a tentacle assertively.
No more I pledge for its safety after that time frame, even if it complies. Understand?
5 minutes was hardly enough to break the ice, let alone cover everything in humanity's arsenal. It was a farce of a trial to appease the Venlil, after which the Federation could rush to a summary judgment. Noah's body language betrayed little emotion, but he gave me a nod to signal his acceptance of the terms. I flicked my ears with forced politeness. We accept. And if you're interested in objectivity, pass through the data dump. That goes to anyone listening. I've uploaded it to social media under my credentials, explaining what we've learned since first contact.
You're pushing it all up, Tava. I have a lot of preparations to make. Do not disembark until my next transmission.
The Colchian presider cut off the call, but interested in waiting for my acknowledgement. That could have gone better, but it also could have gone much worse. Wissel collapsed into the nearest seat while I turned back to the pilot's console. We were moments away from arrival and had just cleared the spaceport overhang. The ship touched down under my supervision, slipping its tendrils into the docking port. A thud hummed through the walls and the engine commenced its cool-down process. I breathed a sigh of relief. The Colchians allowed us
I don't
to complete
trust
our loading
this.
sequence.
Once upon a time, I had a nice sheet of glass. It was nice and thick, double paned. Oh, so
Similar to the
sexy.
reception log we had in Bengal
And
Prime.
I don't know what happened to it.
I was pleased to see media personnel on cameras all trying to catch a glimpse of the Predator diplomat. Non-essentials haven't been evacuated. Not yet, anyway. My play to talk where everyone could hear us had paid off. The more eyes on this whole debacle, the better. Noah peeked through the window. Knowing him, the ambassador was itching to survey the alien scenery. A red dot appeared on his forehead, and I screamed at him to get down. The Predator dropped to the floor with lightning-quick reflexes. The human removed his mask for a moment, clearly short of breath. Those binocular eyes must be lost in a 1,000-yard stare beneath that visor. He lay on the floor in silence for several minutes. I think he was worried if he stood up, the Federation was going to kill him. A trigger-happy sniper could take him out in a heartbeat. Rousseau studied the Predator as he held his head in his hands.
What are you thinking, human?
The disgraced officer asked. Noah snorted.
I'm wondering how the Axa were ever uplifted when it's obvious your hatred for predators is so strong.
Things would have been different for humanity if you were the first ones we found. We uplifted dozens of species before them, without issue.
Wissel explained.
We wanted to accept all sentience.
But all the research you did suggested the Axa were different. Did prey species fight wars with so?
Not in the way you do. Our wars were over limited resources, for survival, when there wasn't enough to go around. It wasn't about power, ideology, or bloodshed. That's why we thought we could fix the Greys. But we're naive and stupid. But I miss the species we were then. Maybe we deserve what happened to us because of our weakness.
Of course not. I just don't understand how we took on you all at once.
Noah pursed his lips and dragged himself back to a sitting position.
Even with your help, there's no way we could steamroll the entire galaxy.
Roussel stifled a yawn.
We have nothing to defend ourselves with then. The only survivors from that sector of space are the species that ran. We didn't understand what was happening.
But why didn't you have any defenses?
The Predator asked.
You never even considered the possibility of being attacked. No preparation or contingency.
You don't understand because you've never known peace. Why would you have planetary defenses when all sapiens get along as a rule? Why would you have warships if you never intended to use them? Humans had a very different experience on your world.
I swiveled my ears down and allowed their conversation to float into the background. The last thing I wanted at a time like this was to discuss a topic as grim as war, especially when I'm sure Noah had stories that traumatized me. There was no harm in closing my eyes. Just for a few seconds. The world fizzled away, and my mind dissolved into the dark ocean of slumber.
Tava, wake up.
Noah's visor was inches away from my face. I almost inputted him when I jerked upright.
The Kolshians have told us we can leave the ship. It's time.
It appeared that Roussel had already fled from the craft, which didn't surprise me. If I was a betting woman, I'd wager he was thrilled to be out in fresh air, back on his own turf, even though it spelled catastrophe for him. The Kolshian officer didn't want to be confined with a human any longer than necessary. I wonder what will happen to Roussel. He's going to have several counts of treason stacked against him, I mused. The Kolshians could hang him 10 times over if they wanted to. The human hoisted me to my paws and half carried me over to the exit hatch. I leaned on him even after I regained my bearings, reluctant to let go. There was no telling what the Federation would do when we disembarked the ship. We knew for a fact that there were gunmen on standby. We climbed down to the octagonal terminal together, and I struggled to read my surroundings. Dazzling light but pointed straight at us, likely intended to blind the Predator. Noah winced and brought a hand towards his eyes to soften the blow. The human must be grateful to have the tinted visor to shield his vision. I turned my head to the side so that the glare wasn't head-on.
Hey, sweetie.
Kolshian soldiers were wrapping a trembling Roussel in chains and stuffed the gag in his mouth. One of the guards whipped him on the chin with a nightstick. They seemed to feel more vitriol towards him than the human.
Oops.
The guard jeered.
My bad.
The officer whimpered, but didn't fight back against his captors. A pang of concern stabbed at my chest as they dragged the violet-skinned Kolshian away. But then again, I suppose I should be more worried for Noah's safety now. Roussel still had time to assemble a proper defense, whereas the Predator could be dead at a moment's notice. A Kolshian female raised a megaphone. Human, take slow steps forward. Walk until we tell you to turn. The human crept forward in shuffling steps. It was obvious he was unsure of his footing. My guess was his eyes were shut altogether. I curled my tail around Noah's wrist and steered him forward. His pulse raced. I could detect the hammering heartbeat through my fluffy tail. The camera lens zeroed in on me, no doubt stupefied that I would incite contact with such a creature. The fact that Noah's eyes were hidden probably helped our hosts keep their claws off the trigger. The soldiers directed us down a series of hallways, and I tried to look as relaxed as possible. The onlookers would attribute any fear to my proximity to the human. Optics were everything at this point. I wondered how the leaders would react when we reached the governing chamber. The announcement of the human's arrival must have come as a shock. That wasn't what they imagined when they planned this visit. It was one thing to talk about the Predator in the abstract, but another to see a walking nightmare in person. The Terran ambassador better have a damn good speech at the ready. Somehow, I didn't think the Federation gentry would welcome them with open arms.
You can't always avoid accidents, but you can avoid stressful accident claims. TD Insurance Auto Centers. Claims advisors, repairs, and rentals.
I need a job. I need $1 million.
To help you move forward.
It's the easiest way to make $1 million without, becoming a hired hit. If I were to be a hired hit, you'd actually be able to kill somebody, hide the body, and they get paid for it. I'm not sure how that's really.
Date, standardized human time, September 10th, 2136. The human ambassador strode up to the microphone and scanned the cavernous auditorium. Every guard on the premises was flocked a safe distance away from the Predator, with rifles trained at his head. Barricades and barbed wire stretched in front of the podium.
Hello, ladies and citizens of the Federation. My name is Noah, and I come seeking peace on behalf of humanity.
Silence reigned supreme over the chamber, and the human's words hung in the air with an echo. The seats in the front row were vacated entirely. Many of their occupants were sharing stations with the species near the rear wall. Others were pacing by the exits, and a few were absent altogether. Remote viewing must have seemed the best option.
I am sure all of you have heard terrible things about my species. Perhaps some of them are even true. Predators ravaged your worlds and twisted your altruism, and you feared that we bear such intentions.
Noah turned his head toward me, and I flicked my ears in support.
But your conclusions are a product of confirmation bias, selecting only evidence that confirms your pre-existing beliefs. Humanity is not the same as the Arxer.
The reporters in the upper decks were filming every word. Commentators spoke in soundproof booths, offering live opinions on some of the most influential political shows in the galaxy. The public viewing balcony was almost empty, so most of the citizenry would witness this display second-hand. The anxious murmurs rippling around showed that this wasn't what anyone was expecting. They were expecting the human to come here, vanishing mocking footage and lobbying threats. It was clear they were concerned how close I was standing to Noah. A few tried to signal run to me with tail language.
You come in here, wearing a mask, and think that hides what you are.
Jerulim, the Krakoftal ambassador, leapt out of his seat in outrage.
You're a slaughtering lot of slavers. You round up and gas children.
The nearest dignitaries glanced at the avian and signalled their agreement with tail waves and ear flicks. It seemed to embolden others to vocalise their opinions.
Wars where millions die are a regular thing on your planet.
Dark, the fossil High Elder, joined in. Her thin ears drooped with horror.
You use weapons that maximize suffering and destruction. You invade your neighbors and bomb cities just like the Greys.
Noah raised his hands placatingly.
We have inflicted grave suffering upon ourselves, and I admit we have self-destructive tendencies. But as the Vendel can attest, there is another side to humanity. The side of us that is protective and familial, and has always reached to the stars unearned. We have the traits of both predators and prey.
Yeah, sure. Like what? Mortality. Breathing.
Jerulim jeered.
Let's start with the forward-facing eyes, which seem to be the focal point of your disgust.
The human was unfazed by the widespread contempt, keeping his voice level.
They evolved for depth perception, since primates are an arboreal class of mammals. They have nothing to do with hunting, and
just happens to help with tracking and killing living creatures too, doesn't it? Funny.
Mazik Pestas and Kupo interrupted.
Well,
which one of us looks tasty to your arboreal eyes?
An unidentifiable voice asked. A cacophony of similar-minded leaders spoke up. Animosity and fear were two words that captured the collective mindset to a T. The shouts ranged from panic to accusatory to blood-seeking. The Koshian guard stiffened as the meeting dissolved into chaos. No doubt they expected the discordance to elicit a violent response from the predator.
You're using it to terrorize us, to scope out your enemies.
You kidnapped our civilians. Your first action as a spacefaring species was to hold innocents against their will.
For shame, filth. You defile this chamber with your presence.
Why did you assault the Cheech in cold blood?
We should execute this beast. I'd like to see you turned round.
My eyes widened in dismay, and Noah ducked his head. This was a beatdown televised to the galaxy, not any genuine attempt at listening. It was only solidifying the viewers' prejudices, hearing their leaders chant any attempts for the predator to speak. I noticed a few dignitaries seemed interested in what the human was saying, though, which was a glimmer of hope.
Silence! I said we would let it speak, and I don't break my word. Can you not hold your tongues for a few minutes?
Chief Nikonus roared. Noah took a deep breath to collect himself.
Thank you. Unlike the Arxer, humans are omnivores. That means our diet is primarily plants. Plants. Vegetation. You hear me? We are capable of subsisting without meat, and some of us choose to do so.
But you eat flesh.
Jerulim pulled from the crowd, ignoring the chairman's glare.
Yes. You personally.
Yes. No animal has to die thanks to science. We grow our meat from cell samples in the lab.
The predator added quickly.
Does that not overrule the moral dilemma of killing another creature? There is no suffering caused. We've done our best within the confines of our nutritional needs.
The representatives bore squeamish expressions. While the ethical argument was correct, the mental image their answer evoked.
There we go. Where was I?
Unsettling. They were probably visualizing an unmasked Noah, stooped over a maggot-ridden corpse with blood dripping down his chin. How could they take the person talking seriously with that thought? Humans seemed to understand the reaction when we asked how they would feel if they knew someone chowed down on human legs. It wouldn't matter whether they were ethically sourced. The idea of consuming animal parts was utterly reprehensible to most species. I respected the Terran's honesty, but that wasn't earning him any brownie points with the Federation. Even when I thought about Noah munching into some animal carcass, it made me shudder. I was happy he didn't do it in front of me, but I still preferred not to think about it. There was a crevice of my mind that wondered if humans would find Ben Lil tasty. Did that craving really make the lovable ambassador salivate? Nicholas retched into the waste bin under his station.
Growing flesh near that. Let's change the subject.
Yes.
I always thought the more protection, the better. But then an RBC insurance advisor explained it's possible to have too much protection. Sorry, buddy. Now I have the right amount for me.
Book your check-in today.
Now is the time. It's feed time. It's seed time. It's wheat time. It's grub time. Scott's has everything you need for a lush green lawn. It's go time.
Please.
Gladly. I don't have time to go over everything on the data cache Tava shared with you all in detail, as I hoped.
The Predator stated.
But we've included our art, music, relationships, philosophy, culture, architecture, and scientific achievements. You may find beauty in our creation and innovation.
I finally found my voice. The experiments conducted by the Van Lille, which proved humans have a wide range of softer emotions, have been uploaded as well. Your scientists are welcome to review those findings, and I promise they're replicable if you wish to see for yourselves. Ultimately, this is about you, not us. Do you want to kill a race of thinking, feeling people because they are predators? Just because they have a violent history and a few biological traits you curl your noses at? Is that reason enough to... Jerusalem tossed his sunset-coloured beak.
Yes. If cruelty and violence are reason enough to genocide a species, we should kill all of you.
Noah had synced his holopad to the auditorium projector and cast a video to it.
You want to wipe out humanity without ever hearing us out, with no remorse. How would you respond in our position? What choice are you giving us?
A handheld video of a young predator appeared on screen. I winced as recognition dawned on me, and I realized where Noah was taking this. Marcel was holding a light pink baby pear creature in one arm, feeding it milk with a bottle. The infant sucked eagerly, while the human supported its tiny front legs with gentle touches. The leader's expression softened at the cute animal, though they seemed worried about the predator dropping the ruse and gobbling it up.
This is Marcel. He volunteers to care for animals in his spare time. Before we learned about the Axa, he wanted to go to veterinary school. He's never consumed meat in his life.
Noah swiped a button. The footage switched to a newsreel, which captured Marcel as he was carted away for emergency care. The prolific wounds presented a stark deterioration from the pristine condition he was in before. It was tough to tell this gaunt and groomed human was the same fellow. The red-haired primate looked like a wild predator plucked from the woods. Gasps echoed around the room, and I was relieved to see some genuine pity. Many species averted their ride. I don't believe even the ones who wanted humans dead could stomach the execution of such violence. The entire galaxy is going to see this once the tapes reach them. Noah is forcing them to feel empathy for a predator. The film transitioned to close-ups of the bruises, the emaciated bones and the neck burns beneath the asphyxiating collar. The haunting finale was a photo of Marcel unconscious in a hospital bed, with a sobbing Slanik at his side.
This is what your captain did to a herbivore human. Sovlin starved him and laughed at his pain while Marcel begged him to stop.
The Terran ambassador's voice climbed with indignation, and he shook his head in disgust.
It was cruelty for cruelty's sake. How can you say you're any different to the Axa? If that's not predatory behavior, I don't know what is.
Wait, he's not our captain. He answers to Piri. We didn't tell Sovlin to do that. We had no idea he went that far.
Nicholas growled.
I want justice. I want a child by your laws and ours. Can you imagine if a human treated one of your people like that? What would you be saying about us?
It doesn't matter what you do. You need to die either way.
Jerula muttered.
The whole idea is that you don't have the chance to fuck us over. You're not like us.
But who decides who lives or who dies? Who is like us? What precedent are you setting? Perhaps there's an intelligent scavenger out there who wouldn't hurt a fly.
The human paused for effect and raised a confident hand.
A predator who only eats insects and small game. A territorial herbivore who might lash out at you. Maybe just a tree-dwelling creature who gets targeted for their eyes.
Pupo flayed his trunk.
This is ridiculous. Your whole argument is hypothetical.
Yes, it's the hypothetical that maybe, just maybe, we could be your friends. That's what I want you to consider.
How do we know you won't turn on us?
The Mazik returned, a hint of fear seeping into his voice.
You don't. But you're going to lose this war without our help, and adding us into the mix basically guarantees it. Even if you believe that chance is slim, humanity is your only chance at victory. Work with us to fight the Arxa, as we have offered from the start, or we can all die together. It's your choice.
Thoughtful expressions cropped up across the chamber as the logic of the human's words sank in. Noah saved a compelling argument for last, appealing to reason where empathy could not prevail. Even if this whole thing was an elaborate ruse, it wouldn't affect the war's outcome to fall for it. Nikonus tapped his microphone.
All right. That's enough, human.
Of course. I'd just like to mention...
No. I let you speak over your allotted time since these fools kept interrupting you. You can't say I'm being unfair.
Right. Thank you.
The human stepped back from the podium and seemed to be waiting further instruction. Chief Nikonus's prior words about not vouching for his safety after the speech rang in my ears. Would the Kolshian soldiers really shoot a diplomat in cold blood after everything they witnessed?
Exit the chamber with slow steps and follow the trail of light on the floor.
Nikonus spoke.
We've prepared living arrangements. I expect you, at least the human, to stay there indefinitely. I will retrieve you two when all parties have reached a decision.
I hovered at Noah's side as we walked out, and visible relief tugged at my features. The Terran ambassador spotted the emergency lights along the baseboards and trudged away with quiet reservation. My mind was reeling as we scaled the narrow stairwell, but I was just grateful the human was alive. The selected living arrangements were a full diplomatic suite, complete with plumbing and a kitchenette. 2 trays of fruit mash with an algae and Devon garnish waited on the bedstand. Noah's species needed more protein in their diet. However, I wasn't going to explain that when the Kolshians were serving him a gourmet meal, the same as everyone else. They could have starved him and tossed him in a dingy cell. The human flung off his visor. After wearing it for days, the rough metal had left an indentation around his eyes. A deep sadness danced in his chocolate irises, and months of weariness bubbled to the surface.
I'm trying so hard, Tava. This was my dream.
Noah muttered. I placed a paw on his shoulder. You were amazing. The predator sighed.
It didn't feel like that. It felt like nothing I said mattered.
You're wrong.
A new voice chimed in.
As with most things in life, the hate-infused rhetoric stems from a vocal minority. Idiots speak the loudest. Reasonable people tend to be the quiet ones.
The human's head snapped up when his eyes locked on the Zerilian at the door. The Zerilians were a neighbouring species to us and the Brigids. With their quadrupedal anatomy, shaggy brown fur and cub-like ears, they looked smaller than they were. I imagine the visitor triggered Noah's cute response, which made him all the more aware of his predatory visage. The Terran ambassador practically fell over himself to scoop his visor off the floor. He pressed a hand to his face in the interim, peeking between his fingers in comical fashion. Noah fumbled with his headgear, panicking.
I apologize. I wasn't expecting company so soon.
Don't be ridiculous. You don't have to apologize for your appearance. Leave the visor off, friend.
The male Zerilian averted his eyes briefly before continuing.
I'm Chaucer, behavioral scientist with the Galactic Institute of Medicine. May I come in?
Yes, go ahead. Please do.
Noah said.
I've been speaking in our Prime Minister's ear before you ever went on stage. He's my brother.
The scientist explained.
Those Vendel experiments are irrefutable. You sympathize with our plight and you take no joy in suffering. With that new evidence in mind, we're willing to change our position on humanity.
You are? I'm thrilled to hear that someone can grasp the truth.
At long last. The Zerilian government expresses our desire to begin anew, and I only hope that doesn't come too late. Would you like to open diplomatic relations?
Noah's eyes crinkled around the edges, which indicated that a smile was hidden beneath his mask. The Terran ambassador felt his mission was worthwhile if he swayed a single species. That wondrous enthusiasm returned to his predatory years, as bright as the day we first met.
Yes, we would like that. Very much. More than you know. Humanity's door is always open.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 6 more. So I'm gonna do 6.
So good.
Oh, jeez. Alright, I gotta go put these in the oven.
Memory
What time is it?
transcription
Nope,
subject.
we're not doing the oven tonight. I'll just get this mixed and call it a night.
Standardized human time, September 23rd, 2136. Thanks to the destruction of Gajid military outposts, human forces were able to waltz through their systems without challenge. Piri recalled all vessels to protect the Cradle World, which meant the attack on Earth was postponed. With their body detection systems and complex defense network offline, their only play was to hold their core planets. The rambunctious behavior of the humans on the transport ride to the Gajid homeworld struck me as odd. Their vulgarity multiplied by an exponential factor once we were among the regular soldiers. The outpost visitors never made such explicit or demeaning comments. Even Marcel made some quips to his counterparts that came across as downright cruel, but they just laughed it off. I was beginning to realize that these predators may have torn themselves down so as not to exacerbate our fears. How can they mess around at a time like this? Don't they know what they're walking into? My human was playing some game with his new friend, Tyler, which was difficult for me to spectate. As I observed, my buddy's on-screen avatar shot an enemy, while gunfire sound effects played from the speakers. Marcel's laser-focused expression became gleeful, and his counterpart cursed. The screen shifted to a replay which showed the bullet penetrating the avatar's head from a side angle. The body dropped in slow motion, as though the game was dramatizing its demise. Why would the Terrans want to simulate murder and warfare for fun? I hated seeing my friend conduct himself in a predatory manner. It was disconcerting, to say the least. Come to think of it, the ruckus the predators were creating caused me discomfort in general. I really wanted a hug, and for them to turn off that uncivilized game. However, I didn't want to embarrass my Terran friend by collapsing into his grip. That would put him in an uncomfortable position. According to my recent reading, human males were taught not to display emotion in public. Marcel grinned as Tyler called him obscenities, and my ears drooped against my head. I was hyper-aware that I was the only Venlil on the ship. I felt neglected and alone in this awful cage. We're less than an hour away from our destination, Slannick. You need to get yourself together. I slipped away while the red-haired human was distracted and locked myself into the laboratory. My snuffling echoed through the chamber as full-throated sobs racked my body. Why couldn't I just be happy that my friend was improving? It was idiotic to think that Marcel needed me. There were too many rowdy predators here, and I was just going to get in the way. Whatever bonding had occurred between us, my species was too emotional and sensitive. I could never be one of his kind. It was more enjoyable for him to hang with his own people. Maybe my human was bored of me now that the alien novelty had worn off. Had I been suffocating the redhead when I shepherded his recovery? My sentimentality must be grating on his nerves. All we were to the Terrans was a burden. They had to be gentle with the Venlil and couldn't be their true selves.
Slannick.
A revving sound emanated on the frame, and Marcel's agitated voice trickled into my ears. Surprise tingled in my chest that he even noticed my departure.
Slannick, open the door.
Go away, I growled. Regret pulsed through my mind instantly, but it was too late to take the words back. I didn't want to hurt him or push him away. What if this was what Sarah meant when she warned me not to call him a monster? I needed to let him make new friends if that was what helped his recovery, even if it meant replacing me.
I can't do that.
The human tugged at the sliding door, making the frame mobile.
Don't make me kick this down, you big fluffer.
I blinked away the tears and tried to collect myself. My claws hooked in the locking mechanism and began to unclasp it. Marcel pushed his way inside the second it opened and knelt beside me. His hazel eyes softened when he looked at me. Judging by the irritation, my eyes were red and puffy.
Are you okay? Did I do something wrong?
He whispered. I shook my head. No.
The video games bother you? You think it's senseless and violent? Predatory?
Yeah, but that's not why I'm crying. At least, I don't think so.
So you're homesick?
Not really. Don't worry about it. It's stupid. The human crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows. The unwavering look he gave me stated, I'm not budging until you spill. A tear straight down my cheek. You've been different ever since we got on the ship, Mars. I feel like you don't want me here. Marcel recalled like he'd been slapped and stared at me in silence. My heart sunk. The soldier wasn't denying it. The human finally shook his head and chuckled, a stubborn grin clinging to his face. How could even a predator find that amusing? A snarl tugged at my lips. Don't laugh at me.
I am going to laugh at you when you say something that fucking dumb.
He snorted. How is it dumb? It's like you've lost all interest in talking to me or doing anything together.
Slanek, you've been avoiding me with a 10-foot pole. You haven't so much as banked your tail at me, and suddenly it's like any contact with me repulses you. So I've been keeping my distance. I'm trying to figure out what I did.
Huh? Don't you want your personal space? I read a lot of books on human psychology to prep for this trip. They said you have an aversion to close contact. I didn't want to pester or embarrass you in front of the other guys.
We have a problem with other humans in our bubble. But you're fine, because you're cute. Look, anyone that objects to me cuddling you is probably the type of person that kicks puppies for fun, so they can fuck right off.
A chuckle trilled from my throat. All the predatory stresses compounded my emotions, and it hadn't even occurred to me that I was the one who withdrew. Marcel was only respecting what he saw as my wishes. I squinted at him. You're having more fun with the other humans, though. You look so happy, and I want you to be.
I'm just trying to get to know the guys. We're going to be fighting alongside them. I don't want everyone to treat me like some charity case just because I'm...
Marcel trailed off, pointing to his pink scarf.
That's all I'm known for, Slanek. I don't want that.
That doesn't define you. Anyone who thinks it does can fuck right off, to use your phrase.
You're right. I'm sorry if I made you feel excluded, buddy.
I'm sorry too.
All is forgiven. So, now that we're good, can I pick you up?
As soon as he saw my ears flick, Marcel scooped me up in his arms. I felt joyful as he carried me to the couch, unashamed of our bond. The Predator switched off the gaming console, noticing my sigh of relief. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in his grip while he was focused on simulated death.
Come on, man. We had one more round.
Tyler protested.
I felt sorry for you. Mercy rule.
Marcel scratched my forehead, and the other soldier smiled at me too. Somehow the expression looked much more ferocious on his lips than my humans.
Besides,
our room was plunged into darkness as the lights snapped out in unison. The transport lurched beneath my paws, and the long-limbed humans reached for nearby furniture to steady themselves. Khajiit orbital defenses must have nailed us, which meant we entered their orbit. In the dim lighting, the Predator's faces were cloaked in shadow. It bore a striking resemblance to our prehistoric beasts lurking in the night. The only thing I could see was the faint glint of Marcel's eyes and the rapid movement of his arms. He draped me over his shoulder, while terror numbed my mind. I could hardly even squirm in his firm grip. Not that my body was obeying my brain's commands. I wanted to protest, but couldn't manage anything more than squeaks of gibberish. Slanek, don't pass out like you did against the Arxa. You're supposed to be watching out for Mars, I scolded myself. Do you have to freeze every time you're in imminent danger?
I still got little bits, so they're not mixing in.
Another tremor pounded the transport, and the overhead ceiling creaked. The shield burst from the impact's dispersal, but some of the damage trickled through. This Khajiit barrage meant another departure for Terran soldiers launching to the surface. The main vessel wasn't going to be able to get us as close as they wanted.
I'm surprised the Khajiit found us so soon.
Tyler barked.
What about the ships we sent ahead as decoys, to draw their defenses away?
I lowered my ears. I'm sure they predicted your predatory tactics. Ruses and deceit. That's all here, guys. Marcel's fingers tightened around my stomach.
You don't have to make it sound nefarious, Slanek. Everything we do isn't petty to this, petty to that. We just want a tactical advantage.
Well, you're a predator whether you like it or not. I don't mean it to be unkind, I responded. The Arxa are ambush predators too. We've been conditioned to expect them to use stealth or lure us away. Tyler snorted.
We're not ambush predators, though. We're persist.
Shut the fuck up.
I gaped as Marcel jabbed a heel into the other human's boot and caused Tyler's words to break off.
Don't you dare finish that sentence.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry, man. I wasn't thinking.
Wait. You're what? I asked in a tentative voice. Marcel, why did you stop him? You're scaring me, roaring like that. My eyes had adjusted to the lighting enough to see my human gritting his teeth. I had been around the Terrans long enough to know that that was no smile. It was too strained. He was terrified that immediate disclosure would freak me out. What secret was Marcel hiding? Didn't humans have to be ambush predators primarily? One of our scientists was certain that was their only viable hunting strategy. They were slow, and their brains were their only advantage.
Do you trust me, Slanek?
He whispered. I nuzzled his shoulder. Yes. Marshall turned into a hangar bay.
Do you think I'm an abomination, like Sovlin and Zahn did?
No. You know I don't.
Well, I'd like to keep it that way. I'll tell you, but not right now. Then, it can be our secret, okay?
Fine. But I'm not going to forget. My friend sighed and scratched his fresh buzzcut with frustration. I could tell from how his strides quickened that he didn't want to convey that information at all. Something about this whole exchange unsettled me deep in my bones. Wouldn't any explanation of humanity's evolution be a good thing? In their position, I would want to put as many scientific questions to rest as I could. It would help galactic leaders make an informed decision about Terran society and inclinations. Marcel set me on the floor and slipped the bulky hands over his shoulders. I scrutinized his body language, trying to determine why he wouldn't confide in me. If anything, not defaulting to Mamba's predation would distance humanity from the Arxa. What could be more heinous than stealth?
Now, on the topic of trust,
the red-haired woman began.
I'm going to strap you to my vest and sedate you. Everything will be all right. I promise.
What? I scrambled backward and collided tail first with Tyler. Why? You don't need to knock me out. Marcel cinched his vest straps.
You know we're jumping out of a shuttle from the upper atmosphere. I don't think you want to be awake for that.
What? You? What? Now? I thought that was a joke.
We don't joke about our crazy military shit.
Tyler chuckled. My entire body quivered with dread, and my tail bunched up between my legs. Bile rose in my throat, a byproduct of the nausea racking my stomach. This was suicide. Nobody in their right mind, or even the Arxa, would choose to free fall from the clouds. Tree-dwelling predators like the humans should have some fear of heights, or at least of slipping to their deaths. Maybe that's what kind of predators they were, leaping from great heights onto their prey.
You won't remember any of it,
Marshall insisted, creeping toward me.
You'll just go to sleep, and you'll wake up on the ground. Leaving your head is not an option, okay?
The Terran ship pitched to the side as it was pounded by another enemy assault. The shields rendered a negligible difference this time, and the thunderous jolt made my molars rattle. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to think. My options were to go up in flames, or to enter a drug-induced state of helplessness as a predator dragged me toward the ground. The only image in my mind was myself as I splattered blood on the pavement. What if the sedative wore off before our deaths, and my last moments were hurtling through purple skies at terminal velocity? I just couldn't do it, even for Marcel. I tried to tell the humans to leave me, and then figured out something else. As if Enlil, there was always the option for me to surrender myself. The Khajiit would take me as prisoner if I took a shuttle over there, alone. There was a prick in my neck, and I yelped at the unexpected pain. And my eyes blinked open to see Marcel stooped beside me, inserting a needle into my skin. The human already unloaded the entire syringe. With the tranquilizer flowing through my veins, I was going to be at the predator's mercy. A scream of horror came from my throat. No, please don't, Mars. My eyes felt impossibly heavy, and my vision shrunk to a pinhole. The last thing I remembered was collapsing into the human's arms, certain he was about to kill us both.
These don't paint very well, so I'm just going to cover them in some glue. So when they dry, I can paint them and the paint will stick. So yes, watch while I fondle pumpkins. Pumpkins. Fuck, what time is it? I'm getting weird again. Have you fondled your pumpkin today? Fuck, I need to go to bed. Be an artist, they said. Who said? No one, because I wanted to do this.
Supposed to be cowards. The Galactic Federation Species Registry had them listed as a 2 of 16 on the Aggression Index. Our interactions with the Terran Union up until this point supported those conclusions.
This is not the same story.
They had fought any wars amongst themselves in centuries, and had formed a unified world government prior to achieving FTL travel. They had responded with
I thought I had one with a pumpkin. Where are you? There you are.
Unlike many species. Earth had resolved every dispute through diplomacy and compromise since it became an official member of the Federation. For example, a few years ago, the expansionist Zenik claimed a Terran mining colony as their territory. The Federation braced itself for a minor conflict, as they expected the humans to defend their outpost. But the humans...
Remember when you were a kid, you covered your hand in glue, waited till it dries so you could peel it off? I'm getting there.
Going to war, the Terrans somehow ended up as prominent trading partners for the Zenik. There was also an incident where the paranoid Horde Al arrested Terran ambassadors on charges of being spies. Imprisoning diplomats with zero evidence was a clear provocation to war, but the humans did nothing. They didn't even raid the facility where the representatives were being held. they simply opened back-channel negotiations with the Hordal and arranged a prisoner exchange, swapping a few smugglers for their people. Thoughts on the humans varied depending on who you ask. Some in the Federation found their pacifism commendable and appreciated their even-tempered statesmanship. Others thought that it was weakness that led them to go to war. I was in the latter. The only reason not to respond to blatant insults with aggression was that they didn't have the wits or strength for it. When the Devourers came, the three most militaristic species in the galaxy, as per the Aggression Index, banded together to stand against their approach. We didn't know much about them, but we called them the Devourers since their sole mission was to drain stars of their energy. I can't tell you why they would do such a thing. Whatever their reasons, they would take one system by force, suck it dry, and then move on to the next. Our fleet, the finest the Federation had to offer, suffered heavy losses when the path of enemy strikes. We fought as hard as we could, and it didn't matter. Our weapons hardly seemed to scratch their ships. It was a tough decision, but I ordered what was left of the fleet to retreat. As much as we needed to stop them, we would lose the entire armada if we stuck around any longer. I sent out a distress signal, relaying our grim situation, pleading for reinforcements. There were other species with lesser, but still quartered militaries within the Federation. But my request was returned with silence. Not a single one of those cowards volunteered to help me. Hearing of our defeat, I suppose they decided to flee and fend for themselves. I thought we were on our own, until we detected human ships jumping to our position. How ironic. The only ones who came to our aid were the galactic pushovers. There were only 5 of them, according to our census, which was not nearly enough to mount a fight. Pathetic showing. There was more than 0 ships that had been sent by the other Federation powers.
Sir, the Terrans are hailing us. What do they think they're gonna do? Talk the enemy to death?
First Officer Blaise quipped. I heard a few snickers from my crew, but quickly shushed them. We need all the help we can get. On screen, a dark-haired human blinked onto the view screen.
Federation vessel, this is Commander Mikhail Rykov of the Terran Union. We're here to assist you in any way possible.
I bowed my head graciously. Thank you for coming, Commander Rykov. I am General Keelock. Please join our formation and help cover our retreat.
Retreat?
The human commander blinked a few times, looking confused.
Our intentions are to engage and terminate the enemy.
With 5 ships. All due respect, the Devourers number is in the thousands, and they crushed our fleet of equal magnitude. I wouldn't expect a peaceful species like yours to understand warfare, but it's in your interest to follow our lead, I said. Commander Rykov seemed even more confused.
You think humans are a peaceful species? What the hell? Why would you think that?
Well, you never fight with anyone. You resolve everything with talk. Humans are the lowest rated species on the Aggression Index, I replied.
I see. The Federation has misjudged us there. Do you know why we avoid war, General?
Because you don't think you can win? Fear? The human laughed heartily.
Ha ha ha. No. It's because we know what we are, what we're capable of, and nobody's deserved that quite yet.
The idea of Terrans making ominous threats would have been a joke to me before now, but something in Rykov's tone told me he believed what he was saying with conviction. This was a clear case of delusion, stemming from a lack of experience with interstellar warfare. The Devourers would make fools of the Earthlings and punish them for their overconfidence. However, if the commander really wanted to send his men to a slaughter, I would not stop him. If you insist on fighting, I certainly won't stand in your way. But know that you're on your own. We're getting out of here. What is your plan? I asked.
We brought a nanite bomb we developed. We've never actually used one before, since in about 5% of simulations they didn't stop with localized entities and consume all matter in the universe.
Commander Rykov said this way too casually for my liking.
But we programmed them to self-destruct after a few seconds, which will probably work. Ensign Carter, fire at the enemy in 5 seconds.
My eyes widened in alarm. Wait, hold up. You just said he could destroy everything. The Terran flagship fired a missile before I could get to another word to stop it. First, thought that they had missed their mark. The projectile sailed through the Devourer's fleet, not connecting with a single ship. Then, it detonated at the rear of the formation, and all hell broke loose. Space itself seemed to shudder as an explosion tore through anything in its vicinity. The force was so powerful that our sensors could only provide an error message as measurement. At least a third of the Devourer fleet was instantly vaporized as an improbable amount of energy and heat turned them into metal soup. There was no way any occupants with those ships lived through that. The enemy vessels further out from Ground Zero survived the initial blast, though many of them sustained heavy damage. But an invisible force seemed to be slowly dissecting each of them. I could only watch in disbelief as the mighty cruisers disintegrated bit by bit. I suppose the bomb had thrown out a swarm of nanobots, which had attacked the ship's structure on a molecular level. The Devourers hardly knew what hit them. By the time they thought to return fire, there was nothing left to return fire with. Their arsenal evaporated in a matter of seconds, and undoubtedly, their personnel suffered the same fate. Where there had once been an unstoppable army, now only stood empty space. The humans had unleashed a wave of destruction that was unrivaled by anything I had ever seen in my military career, with just a single missile. Horror shot through my veins at the thought that they might one day turn their monstrous weapons on the Federation. There was no way to defend oneself against such diabolical creations. The aggression index needed an update. The kind of species that would invent weapons like that was no two. Glancing around at my crew, I saw stunned and aghast reactions that mirrored my own. If they ever became hostile, the humans represented a threat of the highest level. They could more than likely wipe out the entire galaxy without breaking a sweat.
No, that's taken care of. You should have just invited us to the party to start with.
Commander Rykov grinned.
Tell you what, General, next time we meet, you owe us a beer.
I frowned. The humans could ask for much more than a drink if they wanted to. Yeah, I think we can do that. Commander Rykov terminated the call, and I watched as the Terran ships walked back into hyperspace. I was still trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing, and I wondered how I was going to put this into words for the combat report. The Federation had no idea who the Terrans truly were, but I was going to make sure that they did. And as I played the events of the day over in my mind, it clicked. I finally understood why such a powerful species would not show its hand. The humans avoid war because it would be too easy for them to win.
I said I wasn't going to bake anymore. By the time I get these painted, the other ones could have been painted.
Expecting the worst when the messenger arrived. As per galactic customs, the fastest ship was sent ahead of the fleet to provide a first-hand account of the battle to the ambassadors. The terrified look on the young Jatari ensign's face as he entered the Senate chamber seemed to confirm everyone's fears. I remembered the transmission we had received just a few hours ago, detailing the grim predicament of those who had confronted the Devourers. The numbers of confirmed losses had already been hefty, and without any Federation members sending in backup, we could be looking at as much as 90% casualty rate. As Speaker, I had tried to persuade the mid-tier aggression species to offer assistance, but they all flatly refused. If I had the power to force them to go, I would have. We all knew about the trail of destruction the Devourers left in their wake, but we had no choice but to stop them. They would push us to the brink of extinction if we allowed them to plough through our galaxy. There were a few odd points to the messenger's behaviour, however. As he walked up to the podium, he locked eyes with Terran Ambassador Nikki Johnson and swallowed nervously. I noticed that his hands were shaking. The Jatari were a proud, honor-driven race who had seen the horrors of war time and time again. Never before had I seen them return home looking like they'd seen a ghost. And why would his fixation be on the peaceful humans of all races?
Hello, Senators. I'm Ensign Tellus.
The Herald's gaze had not left Ambassador Johnson.
The Devourers have been defeated. Not a single one of their ships survived.
Surprised murmurs spread through the assemblage. I was puzzled as well. The earlier correspondence had painted a hopeless picture for our men. If there had really been such a drastic turn of events, I didn't know how it had happened. Whatever tactics the fleet had employed could be passed on to other commanders for future encounters. A quick glance across the room revealed most of the representatives in a state of confusion. But the Terran ambassador was smirking, a predatory glint in her eyes. There was something about her expression that unsettled me deep in my subconscious. I leapt to my hooves, keen on restoring order. Silence! How is this possible? Please explain.
Well, Madam Speaker, it was the humans. They only sent a few ships to our aid, but they built something awful.
The ensign's voice had dropped to hardly more than a whisper.
It was like they harnessed a supernova. Never in my life have I seen such destruction.
Utter chaos erupted as shocked exclamations rose to a crescendo, and all heads turned towards Ambassador Johnson. I wasn't sure I believed this account of the battle. The humans, possessing some terrible weapon capable of destroying the Devourers. It was common knowledge that they avoided war at all costs. Zanik Ambassador Kazil laughed and raised a talon to speak.
Respectfully, the humans are not a fighting species. Savvy, cunning, greedy, they are all these things. But if they had weapons that could wipe out the Devourers, they'd be more than talkers and diplomats. They'd rule the galaxy by now.
The Zanik were in the upper echelons of aggressive species, but were also humanity's primary trading partner. The Terran Union had won them over with their willingness to sell anything for a price, and despite different philosophies on violence, the two powers had become close allies.
You're wrong. I saw it with my own eyes.
Ensign Tellus replied.
The truth of humanity is that they are killers. They are dangerous. The General thinks we should seek their friendship. But I'm not sure I agree. I don't trust them.
I turned my gaze to Ambassador Johnson. We should let the Terran representative answer. What do you have to say? Is this true? Ambassador Johnson sighed wearily.
Yes, it's true. There's many last resort weapons stashed away. We're very good at warfare, but we're trying to find a different way.
Why did you present us with a false image of your species? I demanded. You speak of peace, and yet you've been hiding away the strongest weapons in the galaxy.
We never wished to use them, she said. Your aggression index. The high aggression species are often territorial and seek to conquer. If your Federation had looked into our history, you would have seen that we were once like that. We lost millions of lives in wars between our factions, and we grew tired of all that bloodshed. Humanity has tried to be better. Our destructive, impulsive nature is still there. We just buried it deep. You see, we are the only aggressive species to have a strong sense of empathy as well. We grapple with that duality constantly. We control ourselves with rules. And for the most part, we choose good. But we know the depths of depravity that exist. We knew that one day someone truly evil would come along, and we would have to be worse.
I digested her words, my mind still reeling. A war with one's own species that had millions of casualties. Even the worst conflicts in the Jatari's early history numbered around 200,000 dead, and they were 15 of 16 on the aggression scale. The bloodiest war we had previously known of didn't hold a candle to the humans' past. A species with that much of a propensity for violence should have killed itself off. There was no way they should be able to form a functioning society, let alone to think that they were acting as the galactic peacemakers. It was hard to reconcile my experiences with civilized, smooth-tongued human diplomats, with the vile history Ambassador Johnson had described. No matter how much the humans claimed to be able to control their savagery, we could not trust them. A species with such a drive to violence could easily stab you in the back in a moment of anger. I think nothing of it. Honestly, if I wasn't afraid of retaliation, I would have raised a motion to oust the Terran Union from the Federation then and there. But even if it was playing with fire, it was probably better to have them on our side than to have them turn their artillery on us. We would have to monitor them much more closely, though. I forced a neutral expression. You did save us from an enemy we could not beat in our own. We owe you a great debt. It will take some time for the Federation to fully consider what you have just told us, but we thank you for ending the war. Ambassador Johnson's eyes hardened.
The war is not over, Speaker. We defeated one fleet. But the Devourers will send more if they are not eliminated. And they only would come back stronger. Humanity does not expect your blessing, but we do ask for your forgiveness for what we are about to do.
What are you about to do? I asked cautiously.
We are going to strike their homeworld with antimatter bombs. No survivors. It is a permanent solution. It may not be pretty, but we don't see any other options to put an end to the terror they subject the rest of the cluster to.
Hey, babe.
Even the most aggressive species looked appalled at the suggestion. I noticed the ambassadors in closest proximity to the human edging away, as though they were afraid she might fight. I shook my head fervently. That is genocide. The Federation cannot accept the eradication of an entire species. Please, let us try to negotiate a truce. We must exhaust peaceful avenues before even considering an attack like this.
You cannot reason with someone who only wants to destroy you. Kill or be killed.
Ambassador Johnson rose from her seat, collecting her belongings.
How many innocent species have already perished by their hands? As far as we're concerned, it's better them than us.
The Terran representative exited the building, waving farewell to Ambassador Kazil as she departed. I could not fathom how any sentient could be so calm and detached at the prospect of glassing a planet, even one of a parasitic race like the Devourers. I wondered if we should at least make some sort of attempt to stand in the humans' way. It was unlikely we could stop them, but at least we could say we tried. Things were simpler when we had thought they were peaceful. A part of me wished that the lie could have lasted for just a bit longer. I missed our pacifist friends already.
Hey, babe.
I had feared that the humans might attack us as soon as our ships entered the Sol system, but the fact that we were still here was a good sign. The Federation Senate had narrowly voted to confront the Terrans, with Speaker Ula being one of the most ardent supporters of the motion. Even with her political pull, many representatives were on the fence about taking action. The fate that had befallen the Devourers could easily be ours as well if we provoked the humans. Honestly, I think if it were their own species being summoned to action, the Senate would not have passed a proposal. But as always, they assumed that the Chitauri, the Zanik, and the Horda Al would do their dirty work, while they stood by and watched from the safety of their offices. I was less than thrilled about leading this mission. After all, we were risking Federation lives to protect the people that had sought to destroy us. While the Terran solution was extreme, I could at least understand where they were coming from. But it would be dishonorable to refuse a direct order. The last thing I wanted.
I have no idea what I'm doing when I paint this thing.
Besides, if I commanded the fleet, I would at least be level-headed enough not to charge into battle against a superior army. And I wasn't sure my cohorts who had not witnessed human weaponry in action firsthand would be so cautious, especially given that most Chitauri officers view diplomacy as an admission of weakness. First Officer Blaze glanced up from his computer as we passed the first of the outer planets.
Sir, we're almost within missile range of Earth. Should we ready our weapons?
Our orders are to stop them, not attack them. If we get into a direct fight, we're doomed, I replied. Let's hope that the humans still like talking. Hail Terran Command. Blaze opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. He silently input a few commands into his terminal, muttering under his breath. The first few moments that the call went unanswered were nerve-wracking. I feared that the humans would simply ignore it. Relief washed over me as a familiar face blinked onto the view screen. Commander Rykov did not look well. His black hair was disheveled, his uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles had taken up residence under his eyes. This was a far cry from the radiant and confident man who had come to our rescue yesterday. It seemed like he should be resting rather than on the bridge of the ship, where I feared pointing out his condition.
Okay, we'll go to bed.
The human officer stared into the camera, a pleading look on his face.
General, we strongly advise you to turn your ships around and stand aside.
Okay. Alright, okay. I'm gonna call it a night. Caddy says so. Alright, good night, everyone. Done. Hope you sleep well.